Hello.
Hey, what's going on?
Hello,
Hey, everybody.
everybody. Hey.
We've got some great action in the chat room. It's been super fun to watch people coming in from all over the world, the International Space Station.
Seems legit.
It seems legit. But hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the very first Sail Safari live event. I'm excited about this, Amy. How about you?
I'm actually really excited as well.
Cool. So we've got a real fun program in store. We've been sort of following along in the chat. I don't know, do you have any comments for what folks have been saying in the chat room now?
Yep. A lot of developer types in there.
But not all developers.
Not all developers. Hashtag. That's a hashtag.
Hashtag not all developers.
If you're not a developer, never fear. The examples we're using today are accessible to anyone on purpose. And if you are a developer, we're going to address your questions about how to apply this to developer audiences and the way developers talk near the end of today. And one of the bonus videos, if you signed up for that, we'll send it to everybody.
Yeah, I think so.
Actually, or maybe an extra bonus.
Yeah,
the fourth video.
A bonus.
Bonus.
Yeah, bonus squared.
Which will focus on some developer topics so that you can see the differences, because devs do tend to talk differently.
That's true. So let's get a quick overview about how today is going to go.
Please tell me.
The main thing for everyone to know is that this is going to be mostly interactive. There's going to be a little bit of time up front, a little bit of lesson explanation of what this is all about, and sort of help you get your head in the right place. But within 10 or 15 minutes from now, you're going to be doing an actual exercise. You're going to be doing some Safari yourself, and then you're going to have
not even 10 or 15 minutes.
Not one, not two, but 3 total opportunities. 3 to go through Safari exercises where you're all using the same sources, which means you'll all be able to compare notes, not just with yourselves, but with us.
Yes.
So that is what's in store. Some notes about, I think, this format, doing this on Crowdcast. I think it's worth saying up front, we've used Crowdcast for lots of things, but never for something quite so interactive. So there's going to be some points where we're going to give you a link to go do a Safari exercise or watch a video. And while that's happening, you're going to want to leave this screen open in a tab. This is why we said you've got to be on a real computer in Chrome or Firefox.
Yep.
Be able to leave this open in the background, because we're going to set a timer for a certain amount of time. We need to be able to communicate with you, to call you back. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on stuff. So make sure you're on a computer with a strong internet connection, a real computer with a real browser.
Yep.
What else? If you have questions along the way, 2 kinds of questions that are useful. One is a general question about how Safari works, how it applies to you, your audience. Put those things down below. There's this little ask a question, suggest a topic thing down below the video. And it's also worth scanning and seeing what else is already down there. Somebody else might have asked a similar question. You can upvote theirs, add comments to it. We're going to be addressing those questions first at the end of today's class.
Right.
So get your questions in there. If an instruction that we give you for an exercise, something doesn't make sense
in the moment,
and it's going to stop you from going forward, that's a good time to ask in the chat room, which is over here, I think, for y'all as well.
My microphone.
right over here. We'll have an eye on that chat while things are going on.
Yep.
But I think that's it for now.
Yep.
For mini stuff.
So yeah, we're gonna teach you a little bit about why Safari matters, like really briefly. Then you're gonna go on your first Safari. Then we're gonna do a little lesson of the techniques that you'll be using on the second 2 Safaris.
Yep.
I recorded myself live doing the Safari on the same content you're gonna Safari. I'm going to say Safari so many times today.
It's going to lose all meaning.
Not a drinking game. You will die. And for those, we actually recorded them and edited them down just a little bit so they would be more efficient.
That reminds me, this entire program will be is being recorded live while we're doing it. So if you miss something, our folks.
Sorry, our chat room wasn't scrolling. Can you hear me?
Sorry about that, gang. Can we get a thumbs up from the chat room about audio and video quality? Is that good? That's better? Okay, great.
Sorry about that.
Sorry about that, everybody.
Why isn't it scrolling?
That is real weird. Awesome. 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 Awesome.
Now it's scrolling. Great.
So what I was just starting to say was everything here is going to be recorded. You will have access to the recordings from the live stuff as well as the recorded examples that Amy was talking about. I'm here seeing some notes about audio being up just a little bit more.
Yep, we can do that.
I'm just adjusting our audio. Thanks for that feedback, gang.
Yeah, sorry we didn't respond quickly. For some reason, the chat room was just not scrolling for us. So we thought you were all being very quiet listeners.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
should have known better.
Okay. Perfect. 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 So, should we get started, Amy?
Yes. Maybe if I click over here, it'll scroll automatically. That's right clicking. No, stop. Okay, great.
All right. So I'm going to bring up your slides, Amy.
Fabulous. Let's get started with just a super brief intro to Sales Safari. Now, I suspect that most of you have been reading my emails, so you know why Sales Safari is important, but just in case there's a dead horse lying around, I'm going to beat it. So welcome. So everything in business is marketing, and especially for you and me, developer types, we tend to think that marketing is like something that you add later or that is promotional, but actually one end to the other in a giant circle, everything about creating and selling a product is marketing. Because first you need to attract people to buy your product. If you have a product and no one to attract to it, well, there's no point. It's not really a business, is it? It's just a project that you made that nobody wants. If you have something and you have people, you need to be able to persuade them to buy that product or to read that book or to share your posts. And naturally, if you can attract people and persuade them, but you have nothing to offer them, if you have nothing to give to them, no blog posts, no content, no product to sell them, no software, then the other two legs of the triangle don't matter. It's actually, you need all three ingredients, and 100% of them are marketing, because we think about marketing as promotion, and that's part of it. But actually, as Peter Drucker, world famous management consultant, once said, the purpose of a business is to create and keep a customer. You need to create them and you need to keep them. You need both sides. And customers are what make a market. So when you're marketing, think of it more like marketeering, blazing a trail, figuring or finding the trail that's already there hidden in the bush, and working with the market, understanding the market, serving the market. The product is almost a side effect of all of these behaviors. And to understand your market, to get them to feel like you're reading their mind, so they feel understood and will follow you anywhere. That is the key to Safari. Safari will show you how to understand your market so well that when you serve them, they'll be like, why wasn't it always like this? Where have you been all my life? Have you literally been in my brain? Because this is almost scary good. When your audience feels understood, they will follow you anywhere. Still not scrolling.
I'm watching.
Cool. So what is the outcome of the Sales Safari stuff? And we didn't really talk about that in the emails I've been sending. So I wanted to show you a couple examples of what we call EBOMs. Educational content marketing is a phrase that's too long to keep saying. So I call them EBOMs because you're dropping a knowledge bomb on people, like that cool Gap Band song, but good. So here's one I found in the course of my everyday browsing, and one of my hobbies, something I'm really interested in, is interior design. And this guy at thelifecreative.blog wrote a blog post he titled, "Do you suffer from SSTD, shit scared to decorate?" And he essentially invented a syndrome, or rather named something that he saw in himself and his audience over and over again. And he wrote a post explaining what it was. He wrote that if you want some art for your wall, but you don't want to mess it up, you buy nothing. That's SSTD. You know you need a bunch of pillows for your cushions, but you're so paralyzed with fear because the last time you bought cushions, they looked like crap. And so you don't want to make that mistake again, and so you buy nothing. That's SSTD. You know your dining chairs are horribly out of date, but you're so concerned that you'll make the wrong decision that you don't act at all. SSTD. Or you cheap out and buy the cheap stuff because you figure, hey, at least if I make a mistake, it won't matter. It didn't cost a lot. but then you live with things that are subpar that you don't really like, that's SSTD. Now, if you've ever decorated your house, this is something that you're going to find really familiar. And he didn't just say, you're scared so you don't do anything. He used these concrete examples that everyone has experienced. I've experienced all of them personally at one point, and I know I'm not alone. So the fact that he nailed each one of them, not just one, not two, but 4 in a row, with such specific and vivid detail, makes me now trust his design instincts, what he has to say about the process of decorating. This is an excellent e-bomb, and this is only a section of it. This is the opening, essentially, the persuasive catch. Here's another one that I came across in my everyday life, titled Crawl Spaces and Cold Feet from myhomescience.com. Now, myhomescience.com finishes this e-bomb with a pitch for a solution. So it is an e-bomb, but it's also a pitch. But they have many, many articles on crawl space and home energy topics. And so they're selling something, but they're educating at the same time. This blog post is really long and really informative. And it opens with a line that goes like this. Your floors are cold, but the last time you checked, the floor joists above the crawl space were stuffed with bats of fluffy insulation. What gives? This is literally what I asked myself as I was standing in my basement, looking at my crawl space, going, well, it is insulated. I can see that it's insulated. Look there between the floor joists. Why is our bedroom so cold? This site literally read my mind. I was like, yes, that is exactly what I am wondering. I am not immune to this, even though I know exactly how this works. And they really persuaded me that what I need to do is seal my crawl space. It goes on and on. He attacks multiple errors that people make with dealing with their crawl spaces. And each one, I was like, oh, I would have tried that. Oh, I see, that's wrong. That is the power of being able to read your audience's mind. And it doesn't just apply to home stuff. Almost lost my glasses there. It also applies to business, to design, to development, to politics. Anything where people have problems can be my brain just restarted. Any place where people have problems, you can get in there, Safari them, deliver e-bombs and pitches and products that help solve those problems. So here's an example from one of our famous 30 by 500 students, Brennan Dunn. He serves freelancers and consultants and helps them level up. And he wrote a very popular post titled, Should You Ever Work for Free? Now, if you're in the design world or some parts of the developer world, you've probably heard no spec work. Or, pardon me, fuck you, pay me. It's a thing. People will come to you and ask you to do free work, and they will say, as Brennan writes, this will be huge for your portfolio. If this free project works out, I will have a lot of paid work for you down the line. I have literally heard these phrases out of the mouth of at least 15 or 20 people during my consulting career, which wasn't even very long. This is extremely common to hear this exact phrase come from the mouths of people who want you to work for free. And in his subheadline, he says, most would say no, but does it ever make sense to do it? Because the industry hardline is 0. Say no spec work. So he generates this double-headed pain from reading his audience's mind. He knows what people tell his audience, and he knows what industry people tell his audience. And he makes this incredibly persuasive and long and very successful post that establishes him in the audience's mind and the reader's mind as someone who not only understands them, what they experience, not only understands what the industry says, but really sits and thinks about it and is able to provide a perspective and a persuasive framework for making decisions. It's an excellent e-bomb. Thanks for popping the links in there, John. That's a very good idea. Thank you. Problem. I want to know more about these e-bombs, but Amy didn't include the link. Solution. JFC. So these are just 3 examples of what you can do in terms of content marketing or e-bombs with Safari data. You can make people go, oh my God, that's exactly it. You can also, of course, do the very same thing in your pitches, in your sales pages, on the things that you write on the back of your books, on your buy buttons, etc. A few years ago, I rewrote the Freckle software as a service sales page. Now, before I rewrote it and redid it, It was a basic software as a service page. It had columns of features with little icons and all that kind of crap. There were a lot of screenshots. I rewrote it and redesigned it with just this cool graph image at the top and a headline that has outperformed literally every other test we did. And the headline is, quote, "My team has gone through 4 time tracking apps in the last 2.5 years, ... Not only is this reading my audience's mind, I'm literally just quoting somebody who uses Freckle and wrote in and said how amazing Freckle was. Now, I had the same experience when we designed Freckle, or rather, before we designed Freckle. We were constantly looking for a time tracking tool that would actually work for us. And I know that most of the people in our position had been doing the exact same thing because I knew those people and I read their blog posts and I hung out with them on forums and absorbed the fact that they all had the same issue and everyone hated time tracking. But when you quote your audience, when you can repeat back to them the pain that they live with every day, that they think no one knows about, no one cares about, I mean, that's a grand slam.
There's another natural benefit to using people's own words and descriptions. If we backtrack just a little bit to the eBaum examples, is that one of the problems that folks who are listening in today and don't have any way for people to discover them, they say, well, people know to go to Brennan for advice. How are they going to know to come to me? When you are writing using the words that people would actually type into Google, like, why is my floor though my crawl space is insulated? You could imagine actually typing that into Google, and maybe that's exactly,
I typed, I think, crawl space cold floor.
Right. So you using exactly the words that somebody else is using to describe their problem increases the odds. This is natural search engine optimization in a way.
Absolutely.
That people are going to discover you answering their question before they even really had a chance to ask it.
Absolutely. And when I redid the sales page, our signups increased 2.67 times. So that's a huge lift. And we then did a bunch of split testing and nothing outperformed using the audience's own words about why they should use Freckle. Or rather, the pain that they have doesn't even establish why they should use Freckle. It literally just opens with, here's what you're thinking. I'm looking at another fucking time tracking site. Why? Why am I always changing? Like, we get it. We get it.
Yeah.
And people only say that in sitcoms when they're arguing. I get it. No one says that in real life. Maybe in California. Anyway, this is the I get it version of marketing, and it's really, really super effective. So when you get people to go, oh my God, it's like you read my mind, you get 3 things. You build trust, you build excitement, and you build a sense of investment, a willingness to invest. So your audience is like, okay, this person really understands me and my problems and the industry. I trust this person. That's what trust comes from. Excitement. They're like, oh my God, someone finally is really listening to my problems. Finally, this problem I've had has come to light. You're so right. Nobody can ignore it when someone really understands them. It's like catnip. And they become willing to invest in their time to read what you write or watch your videos or listen to your podcast. They're willing to invest their social credibility in sharing your things, because sharing is a cost. If you share something that's crappy and all your friends or industry peeps are like, that's terrible, you lose cred. So it's a risk. You build their willingness to invest in you by reading their minds. And of course, then they're very willing to start paying you money, assuming they're an audience that pays for things. Don't target school teachers, for example. So it is time for your first Safari. And I accidentally missed these. There we go. So the very first Safari exercise you're going to do, we're going to jump right in. And you're like, but I don't know how to do it yet. Yes, that's the point, actually. We want you to see what it's like before and after. So your very first Safari, you'll get 5 minutes. Go to the URL that's at the bottom of the slide.
You're going to want to leave the tab that you're currently on open. So open up a new tab or even a new window.
Don't close this tab. We'll set a timer. I haven't set it yet. Read as far as you can carefully from the top. And as you read, jot down anything that you are noticing about the original poster, the post itself, or the people replying to it, anything of interest that might help you read their minds. Like, what are they really saying? And don't stress out about this because you're not going to get it perfect. We haven't trained you yet, but it will give you a feel for what you're going to learn to do hardcore right afterwards.
Right. You're not expected to get all the way to the end of the article. The
No.
goal here is to read as closely as you can. Pay attention. This is the reading equivalent of listening to somebody else speaking.
It's close reading.
Close reading. So 5 minutes on the clock is going to be starting in just a couple of seconds. So open up a notepad, a text editor, wherever it is that you like to type.
Or
Some
paper.
paper if you want, something separate from this screen, someplace where you can take notes. And for 5 minutes, you're going to be taking notes about this crew and asking questions about how they take notes, as it were. Are we ready to get going, Amy?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do this. Everybody in the chat room ready?
Great.
Oh, they're ready. They're ready. All right, here we go. Your 5 minutes starts now.
Ding.
All right, gang. Your 5 minutes are up. And before we dive into sharing our version of what these notes can look like, we're curious how that felt. I know that some folks have written in and said, you've tried Safari before, you're not really sure if you're doing it right. Yeah, how did it feel to sit down for 5 minutes with a thread like that and take notes? Feel good? Feel a little weird? I see aimless. That's good. Confusing and weird. All right. Overwhelming. A little anxiety. Oh, guys, this is great. Evernote is hard. Yeah, Evernote's super weird.
Is so hard.
Looking for
good,
patterns.
But slow. Yeah, it's gonna be slow.
Yeah.
Rock says he took 0 notes.
Oh no.
You're no evil monkey.
Oh no.
Rocks are not gonna yell at you. I think if you end up taking no notes, it's probably because you aren't sure what you're looking for, and so you don't want to write the wrong thing. You essentially have shit scared to Safari syndrome, which
well, and also
you want to take notes, but you don't know what kind of notes you're supposed to take. So you take nothing. I understand
there's a reason that Sales Safari exists, and to a degree, it's exactly that. When we started teaching 30 by 500, we would tell people to do exactly what you just did, to sit down and look at a thread of people in your audience having a conversation and take notes. And people would come back and say, on what?
Yeah, they're like, I didn't see pain. They were just talking about this problem that everybody knows.
Okay. So
don't feel bad, because this is the this is your spelling. I don't know if you were in elementary school, you did pre-tests, or like, can you spell all these words? And of course no one could. And then you're like, oh fine, I do have to learn how to spell these words. Essentially it opens you up to what you can't do in a way that makes you willing and able to learn better. Because otherwise, when you present a solution to someone, if they haven't first felt the pain, they're like, of course, it's obvious. But it's not obvious. And so when you experience it without that lesson first, it makes it easier to learn afterwards, actually. So if you suffered a lot, you're just going to have an extra powerful learning experience the rest of the workshop.
That's right.
And I really believe that.
That's true. So with that in mind, I'm going to flip back to the slides again, and we're going to show you what happened when I actually sat down and took Safari notes on the exact same thread. So what I want you to be doing is looking at my notes, comparing them to your notes. And we don't expect you to be taking notes exactly like we do. We've been doing this for a very long time. We have a process that you're about to learn. But I want you to pay attention to specifically what we noticed that maybe you didn't. And think a little bit about why that is. So I'm going to...
So while you push buttons, somebody said that he felt bad because his notes are disorganized. Why would that make you feel bad? I understand that you actually explained that there. But really, their notes are for you. And we haven't shown you how to organize them yet. So don't worry about it. You're learning.
All right. So.
Oh, good. He says he's actually relaying what he read in the thread. Okay, great. You can just pretend that armchair psychologizing didn't happen.
So take a look at what's up on the screen now. Here's what we found. And what stands out to you? I'd love to hear some comments in the chat room about what's different from your notes and our notes.
Yes. How do your notes compare to our notes? Your notes being more of a newbie, ours being the people who invented this technique.
All right, so I'm seeing comments about things being organized.
Jargon is great. Distinct sections, right. Yes.
Split into sections. Whole sentences. Whole sentences are good. Whole sentences are good. Specific words. Yep. Mainly focused on recommendations. I'm seeing some folks saying that you focused on mostly on a certain area that we did.
So Nathan says that he was interpreting more, editorializing is what we call it, and ours were more literally just what they said.
Right.
That's actually, it's when you're in data gathering mode, you want to just record the data and analyze it afterwards as a second step.
All right.
So
this is great though. I'm super impressed with what everybody is noticing. The difference between your notes and ours. Here's the good news. There's a system for all of this, and you're going to learn it. And we've been doing this for a long time, so we've got a lot of practice. I can sit down and extract so much more in 5 minutes than I could even a few years ago. So you're not going to be this good at the end of today, but you're going to be well on your way, and you're going to know exactly what you need to be practicing in order to get better at it.
Rich asked, was this your first version? Yes, and Alex did this in 5 minutes, just like you did. And it was Alex, not me.
Yeah,
so it's
and
like,
Amy's much better at this than I am.
I'm scary good at it.
Yeah, it's frightening.
I was the scary kid who sat in the back of class and stared at everyone and imagined. Well, I'm not going to continue that sentence.
So, all right. So, Amy, why don't we drop into how to actually do this?
Great. That's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for.
So I can hit the next button in my thingy.
That's right.
Super. So, Sales Safari, the actual techniques. It's time to learn them. Hooray. And I can guarantee you that as long as you actually took notes, you did way better than you think you did. And now you're going to learn how to do even better than that. So there are essentially, as you saw in Alex's notes, 3 ingredients for learning to speak their language. When you learn the really advanced stuff in the full 3500 class, you'll see that there's several more layers, but this is more than enough to build a business on. Number 1, of course, is pain. Now, pain is probably not what you think it is. We're going to dive deep into what pain is in just a moment. Number 2 is jargon. You'll notice that I noticed a lot of you said, oh, I didn't take any notes like of jargon. You're going to learn how to do that and why, because it is really powerful when you want to speak their language. You want to use the language they actually use. And third is what we call recommendations. I literally couldn't think of a better word for this. So if you have a branding idea that's shorter, please let me know.
But recommendations is pretty clear. It's exactly what it is. It's what people suggest. People in your audience suggest when.
I have a slide for this, Alex.
Oh, you do? Then I'm going to shut up. People are suggesting tips, advice, solutions. All those things are included in recommendations.
Yes. So pain. Let's talk about pain. I feel like I should be wearing like really thick dark eye makeup. Let's talk about pain.
Let's talk about pain.
So pain is not just help me, this is awful, because that is too obvious. Pain is composed of 3 things. The first thing is the fact of the situation, the outcome they want, or an outcome they got and they didn't want. An example that we use in class is someone who wants to paint their cabinets and doesn't want to spend the time to do it the correct way. She wants good-looking painted cabinets, but she's not willing to do 5 coats with a bunch of sanding. That's a painful situation. She doesn't actually say, this is horrible, I'm crying, I want colored cabinets. No, she's like, isn't there a shortcut? Asking for a shortcut, rejecting the standard way of doing things, that's an indicator of pain. Also, if your cabinets look like crap, that would be an outcome you don't want. That's pain as well. The feelings around it. So if you want to do it your short way and you have no bad feelings about it, you're not actually in pain. You're just lazy or sloppy, which may cause you pain later, but you're not in pain now. So if you are anxious to try the shortcut that you really want, that actually is also a layer of pain. So pain is the ugly cabinets, the time, not wanting to take the time to do it the way everyone says, and anxious that your shortcut won't work. Those are 3 layers of pain in the same situation. Pain requires feelings or a delta between how things should be and how they are. And also the actions or behaviors triggered. If people are always procrastinating on something, even if they don't say they're in pain, even if they just say, oh, I really should do that, that's pain. Or if they're doing something they shouldn't be doing and they admit that, that's pain as well, even if they don't say emotion words about it. If you're asking for help for something, the implication is that you're in pain. Unless it's some sort of foil to get people to like you, in which case you're still in pain, it's just not the thing you're asking about. Procrastinating, hoping. Hope is like smoke signals from pain. What would you hope for if you weren't in pain with your current situation? Looking for alternatives to what they're doing or how they're living or how things are working, that's an indicator of pain. Just randomly trying things, that's an indicator of pain. Looking for shortcuts, that's an indicator of pain. There are so many behaviors that tell you a person is feeling or experiencing or living in pain without them actually saying it. So one example, this can be a little bit difficult to to look for when you're not used to really analyzing why people are doing or saying things, when you're just taking them at face value, which is how most of us normally act. But a story I like to tell is one day I walked into the bathroom and my cat Haskell was sitting in the bathtub looking at me, and he went, meow. What did he want?
To get out of the bathtub.
No, he could get out of the bathtub himself. That's one potential thing. What did Haskell want? People are saying food, to take a bath. Zachary clearly doesn't have a cat up there on the International Space Station. Cats never want to take a bath. Yes, everyone who's saying water is correct. He wanted me to turn on the faucet. So if you can figure out what a cat wants, cats are like not human. I don't know if you noticed this. They're animals and they don't have words, but a cat can sit by a door and stare at you and you can know what it wants. You can figure out how to understand people, what the pain is implied by their actions. Some humans are like cats. I know I am. That brings us to jargon. Jargon has fewer bullet points. So jargon is obviously specialty words, terms of art that an audience uses that people outside the audience will not know. Full overlay is a cabinet thing. Full stack is a developer thing. In a diner, it would mean something completely different. That should really be in the second category. Pancakes. Bokeh, anode. What the hell is an anode? You're going to find out later today. Also, insider lingo, normal words used in an unusual way inside a community. So I actually should have edited this slide more, because full stack and creamy are words that mean something very specific to developers and photographers, but mean something completely different to a short order cook.
Yeah.
So insider lingo are words that look like you know them, but mean something completely different inside an audience. It's very important to master these, because if you use them incorrectly, people will be like, not one of us.
One of my favorite examples for that is if you are trying to communicate with other freelancers and you refer to their customers as customers, it seems subtle, but most of them refer to their customers as clients.
Absolutely.
And it's not wrong, but it definitely sends up that little trigger of, you're using a different word than me and all of my peers use to describe this. I'm not sure if I should trust you.
Tribalism is real.
Yeah, big time.
So that's what jargon is. And it's really, really helpful to write down any words you don't know, or any words that clearly apply specifically to the industry, or any words people use in a different way than the rest of the world. This is extremely helpful when you go to write your copy and your e-bombs and design your product. So jargon.
One last thing to add on that is the exercises that you've just done and you're about to do are with audiences that you probably don't belong to, or at least you don't spend a lot of time immersed in. One of the reasons that we choose these audiences is it becomes easier for you to spot jargon, partially because it's unfamiliar. Whereas if you're immersed in your professional world, there's words that you use every day that you don't even realize are specialty words.
Do fish have a word for water?
Right. So this is another thing that's going to take a little bit of practice. I don't think it's as hard as spotting some of the nuances of pain, but getting used to noting those words that you and all of your peers use, that if you went to, a house party or a cocktail party where you were surrounded by people who are not your professional peers and use those words, would they be confused? Would they know what you're talking about? That's a good clue that what you're using is jargon.
Absolutely. Maxime asks, can you download the session later? Yes, everything is recorded. So recommendations are more subtle than jargon, not as subtle as pain. So recommendations are what they sound like. It's a big umbrella term. It's very long, and I have to shrink it down to fit it on these slides. It includes advice. For example, do this, try this. Did you try this? Experience says, or the opposites, don't do this, don't try this. References to anything that a person should read, listen to, watch, observe, such as e-bombs or products or podcasts. And of course, actually products specifically, it falls under references and advice, but at the same time, products are an important separate category as well, because when people are recommending products or warning people against products, you can then go research those products. So for example, if you find people in a community are saying, don't buy this tool, you can go and you can figure out what it is that leads them to disrecommend it And you can essentially do the opposite potentially with your e-bombs in your product and your marketing. Or if people do recommend products and you know that they buy it, a lot of audiences have products that everybody knows are the best. And you can then look at prices, how they market, where they reach out to their customers, and do competitive research that actually matters. Because if you just Google for a type of product and you land on the product pages, you have no idea what the audience thinks of those. The audience is the most important.
I like
to get into those.
I like to think of recommendations as a breadcrumb trail being left for you by your audience for other things that are probably worth taking a closer look at.
Because the witch is going to put you in the oven and eat you?
No, because there's good stuff down that road.
Like a gingerbread house? I've heard this fairy tale. I think I remember it differently than you do. Breadcrumbs, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Or one of those really cool like direction signs with the signs that say like, you know, this product 3 miles ahead, good price.
Yep. Rob asked a really good question about phrases you can use to search in Google as well as in watering holes themselves. Think about and honestly, so the example here you should use is a good one, but it can be helpful for while you're taking your Safari notes. You notice that we grabbed full sentences sometimes. Make note of the kind of phrases that your audience uses to make recommendations. Plug those words into Google as well as your watering holes and see what comes up.
So I want to give you some very specific advice about Googling for specific types of data that you want. If you Google for specific data, you may get it, but you're not going to see all the stuff that you aren't searching for.
Right.
So it's very important to Safari lots of threads, and from there, look at what you find and search from what you've already found and seen over and over. Otherwise, if you search, you'll get the results you're looking for, but you won't understand where they sit in the overall body of potential data. You could be looking at something that's extremely niche and old and no one cares about, but you wouldn't know that because you essentially just went straight to those results.
Right. Yeah, I think the thing to remember is there is definitely an order of operations here. These pain, jargon, and recommendations are ways to organize what you find, but the goal is to find it where it lives, not go look for things to fill up your pain, jargon, recommendation buckets.
Right. Don't go looking in the world to fill your bucket. That's basic
don't
self-help advice.
Don't go chasing waterfalls.
That song was about sexually transmitted diseases.
Same thing.
Google transmitted diseases. So we have a cheat sheet that you're going to get that's going to help you find watering holes. And also, guys, you're saying confirmation bias. I think it's actually selection bias if we're going to nerd out.
If we're going to nerd out. I think
Don't
we just
go
did.
down in a nerd competition with Amy Hoy. So those are the 3 things you are going to learn today. And these are the 3 things that you're going to practice looking for in the upcoming exercises. Oh, yeah. And when you find products or any kind of larger reference, like go read this giant site, see if there are prices and make a note of what those prices are, because that will inform your audience's willingness to pay for things. Somebody asked, what is a watering hole? A watering hole is where the animals in the safari, you know, the animals in the
plains, the
plains,
let's call it the Serengeti. What is the Serengeti? It's a desert.
Isn't that where the animals don't live?
I don't know. Where the animals live, they gather around watering holes because they need water. It's where they congregate.
Yes,
the savanna.
That's the word. Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah.
So you go where the animals hang out because that's how you can observe animals. If you go in some random part of the desert, there won't be any animals there because there's nothing there for them.
It might be worth actually just to put it on the table. The reason we call Sales Safari is that it is the difference in how you make observations. So think about if you were going to try and understand how a lion or an elephant behaves. You would probably go to the zoo to watch them, but you would learn how those animals behave when they're in the zoo, which is not their natural habitat. It's where they are fed by feeders. It's where they are protected from predators and things like that. You don't get a real sense of what that animal is like in its natural habitat, which means the majority of the lions and elephants in the world who are not in that unnatural habitat are going to be absolutely nothing like them. So what you need to do is find your animals, your audience, in their natural habitats. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to find places where they naturally gather, which we call watering holes.
Yeah, because we started with this sort of animal metaphor and just kept it going.
Yeah.
So watering hole is any location where your audience gathers to talk about stuff amongst themselves. The zoo equivalent of doing customer research is to do cold calls or cold emails or customer development, which gives you a really artificial result because people want to be nice, they want to be helpful, and also people are really bad at sitting down and reciting their pains on command. They don't think about it that way because most people dull out their pain and just deal with it so they can get through the day. They're not going to have a ready list of their real pains that you could help. But when they are, oops, squeezed my remote too hard, excitement.
We're getting there, Amy. We're getting there.
They're not going to have a ready-made answer that's going to be really helpful to you, even though it may seem so. So it's really important to observe your audience in their natural environment, talking amongst themselves, the way they talk. When they don't really know you're watching. It's not like you're creeping because it's all public or you're a member, but they're not generating data on purpose, and that's why the data is so valuable.
So
it's not a performance.
I think we're getting close to folks using everything that they just learned to do this for real for the first time.
Absolutely. Matt said that Safari gets me thinking of Jurassic Park. Life does find a way, but I promise if you go on Safari, you will not get eaten while you're on the toilet.
You shouldn't make promises you can't keep. but Amy's probably right. This is way less dangerous than a theme park where you're likely to be eaten.
Yeah, you can do this in the comfort of your own home.
That's right.
So here is the format that you should use when you're taking your Safari notes. Now, we don't have time today to show you our technique for the next step, which is to take many different Safari notes files and combine them to extract huge themes. But when you have several of these for an audience, you'll have plenty to get going with to start writing e-bombs, emails, building your list. You don't need to have the next step to be able to start doing things, and that's important. I am going to include a cheat sheet that I have to design probably early next week, in addition to the other ones that are already ready for you, that will show you a card sorting technique we call the serial killer wall. I really like to do
that's the most dangerous part of the process.
It'll show you roughly how we do it. And of course, if you want to go really far with Safari Day, there's always the full class.
But this format you're going to follow. So today, coming up in a second, you're going to use each time you sit down to Safari, every time you pick a new thread to dig into. That's one discussion with, like the post we just gave you, with an original post and comments below it.
Yes.
Right? You need to be recording in a separate document, ideally. How you do this is ultimately up to you, but ideally a separate document so you can keep them organized.
One document or one text file or one Evernote note per Safari thread that you go on.
That's right. You're going to include at the very top of the URL of the Safari source, that thread. Reason being, there's nothing worse than collecting a bunch of useful information and then forgetting where the hell you got it from.
Absolutely.
There's also a component that we go into much more in 30x100 itself, where when you use your Safari data to later create an e-bomb, there are some best practices for sharing that e-bomb, which is inherently useful to address the pains that are in that thread with the people who already actively need help.
Yeah, closing the loop.
Closing the loop. The date that you took it, again, for a little bit of context, and then those top 3 categories: pain, jargon, recommendations. So every time you sit down to start a new Safari, you're going to create a new text document that looks like the one that you see on your screen. And I mean, you can keep a blank file so you can just copy paste and not forget each time. Chris,
can you please add that to the questions under the video? So several people are saying, product idea, sales Safari app. The problem with using tools to do this kind of work is that the tool will necessarily sort of shape what you do in a way that you may not realize. In terms of interaction design, it would be extremely difficult to get this kind of natural level in the actual Safari thing. Also, it's our trademark and you can't have it.
Right. But
So
the key,
don't get distracted by the idea of shiny tools, because if you're a software developer, you probably will recognize the cycle of diving into something and then getting distracted by the shiny and then not finishing.
Timothy Meadows just posted exactly what this is about. Safari is about changing the way your brain sees information. So while, especially for the programmers in the room, the people that are used to automating and optimizing, Safari is not something to automate or optimize on purpose. That would be like trying to automate or optimize an exercise in the gym. You want to do it to get its full optimum impact on your muscle or whatever it is that you're trying to get out of it. By optimizing it to make it easier for yourself, you don't get the benefit from it. So this is literally brain exercise, and you'd be cheating yourself to try to automate it or offload it. You know, the truth is as great as technology is, you've got the most incredible computer in the world and between your ears.
Absolutely.
Use it, my friends. And here's the other thing to remember is most people out there won't. They won't use their brain. So simply by using your brain to do this little bit of work, you are giving yourself an incredible leading edge on everyone else who is going to want to optimize to do it the lazy way.
So something else to think about, all you guys who are thinking about tools, and I understand that because I love making software. I've made literally millions of dollars doing it this way with text files and index cards. So when you are able to make millions of dollars doing it my way, then you should think about how to enhance it, because my way has made me millions of dollars. Let me repeat that, millions of dollars. My business was $1.15 million last year, and most of that was not 30 by 500. So keep it simple. Don't be thinking that you can do better than me. And I use text files. Keep it simple. Don't tool wank.
I think we should let some folks Safari now.
Millions of dollars, you guys.
Millions of dollars.
Not really bragging. I just want you guys to focus on what's important.
Right. You gotta crawl before you walk before you run.
Graham says, are you going to cover how you store and review these? Literally have a folder with text files in it, and I write pain points on note cards and arrange them on a whiteboard. I said there will be a little cheat sheet showing them how I do that. But it's really that simple.
Right, that's it.
And Rob says mostly we were joking.
Yeah.
I know you are, but people, they're the kind of jokes that are kind of funny because they're true. So I'm a developer. I get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I see you.
All right.
Great.
Let's what do we got next?
I think it's oh yeah, this is hard. This feels really tough the first 20 to 30 times you do it. It's gonna feel difficult. You're gonna wonder if you're doing it right. The answer is you're not doing it right, and that's fine. You will get better and better at it. You will also be really slow for a long time. The thing is, it just doesn't feel natural what you're doing. Normally, when you read something, you're reading it for the content, to answer a question or learn something. You're not really reading it to psychoanalyze the people writing. It doesn't feel natural. To which I would say, neither did pooping in a toilet when you were a toddler, but you figured it out. And you will figure Safari out as well. It'll just take a lot of practice and singing a song maybe when you successfully do it.
So to build on that metaphor, maybe something that's a little closer in your memory, I always remind people who have learned to drive, if you had to actually think about every last little step that you had to take while you were driving, you would probably freak out and not want to drive a car. But when you first start learning how to drive a car, it feels really awkward because you have to think really hard about each individual step.
Yes.
But eventually you start building muscle memory. Safari is just like that. You're going to be following very specific steps. Once you get an example of how Amy and I do our Safari, you're gonna get to watch a video of us actually doing it. So you get to figure out how you can improve. It's gonna feel weird. It's gonna feel jaunty and awkward, but over time and through practice, it starts feeling more natural. And most importantly, you start having these light bulb moments where you're like, oh, I see. I didn't know what I was looking for, but now I know exactly what I found, right? I think that's one of the hardest parts, is getting used to looking at stuff and not knowing what you're looking for. That feels really awkward, and for a lot of good reason, but that is exactly what you're doing. So I am seeing some questions here in the chat room. Questions are great for the question section down below. We'll have question time at the end. There are some really good questions, so make sure they are put down below in the ask a question section so we can get to them at the end of the day.
Relevant to this exact thing we're about to do, though, Camilo asks if there's a set of questions to help evaluate if we're doing a good job with Safari research, you're actually going to be able to compare your work to our expert work, and that will literally show you the physical differences between yours and ours, so you can see what the delta is.
Right. That's step one. In 30 by 500, since like Amy said before, we have additional layers to Safari that you learn. As you learn more layers, we also include some cheat sheets. We call them virtual hot seats to help you do that self-assessment. Again, in a 3-hour workshop, we're not able to include everything, but there are more tools that, if you decide to get deeper into Safari with us, you'll be able to do more self-evaluation.
You're also getting a set of checklists, like, did you do X? So I guess that is actually what you just asked us about, and I forgot that we had that already.
And I saw somebody ask how you're going to be getting those cheat sheets. We'll be emailing them to you after the workshop.
Awesome.
All right.
Is everybody ready? All right. So here are your instructions. You now know the format. Pain, jargon, recommendations. Go to this URL. Remember, open it in a separate tab. Don't close Crowdcast. We'll all be sad if you do. You'll have 15 minutes, and we're going to start a timer. Is everyone clear about what the exercise is about? 15 minutes, get as much data out of it as you can. You don't have to worry about how many pages you get through or whatever. Right. It's really about the data.
So first step here is setting up your Safari notebook and having the URL at the top, the date, and then the 3 categories of pain, jargon, and recommendations. You're going to have 15 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute us now, but about halfway through, I'm going to jump on the microphone and remind you that if you're still just noting pain, to make sure that you've noted some jargon and recommendations as well. Make sure you've got stuff from all 3 categories.
Bitly isn't loading? Cool. That's great. I love technology. Dominic pasted the real URL in the chat room.
Go ahead to Dominic. That. Yeah.
Francis asks, jargon then recommendations. It doesn't matter what the URL, what order it's in. We note them as we see it.
Cool. All right. So we'll give folks a couple of minutes to get the site loaded up. Apparently, we are crashing thisoldhouse.com, which is kind of hilarious.
Okay.
It is definitely loading. The site is loading. So you may just need to give it a second. It's coming up now.
This old server. Nice.
All right, cool. Folks, all right. So we'll have to help them out with their caching. All right, so most folks are in. 15 minutes on the clock. I remember I'm going to come in about halfway through, let you know that you're at about halfway time. Make sure you're filling it out. Take your time. Do the best you can, and we'll be back in a little bit. All right, gang. Hopefully this doesn't scare you. You got headphones in or something like that while you're doing your Safari. But I want to let you know that you are at about the halfway mark for the Safari exercise. So I know some folks are a little bit tired. That's okay. Take your time. Catch your breath. You can give yourself a 30-second break if you need to. Sorry for everybody that's scared. But here's the thing. Make sure that you are including pain, jargon, and recommendations. If you think that any one of those three is a little bit light right now, maybe pause on one that you've got plenty of and spend a little time hunting for one of the other ones. There is a second page, third page, and so on. You do not have to get onto the second or third page to get really good stuff out of this thread. So at this point, you've got about 6.5 minutes left. You will not hear from me until your time is up, and I will do my best to not scare the pants off of you at that time. All right, good luck. that is your time up. How did that feel, gang? A little different from the first time, hopefully. Let's keep Safari notes to yourselves for now, just because we want to make sure people have a chance to focus. At this point, no one's had a chance to compare notes to ours yet. But I think we want to know how you're feeling. I know we saw some comments, people feeling a little, this is tired, this is difficult.
So Adam asks, do your sales Safari notes usually take up only an index card worth of space? How do you filter this stuff? I have an A4 page full after just going through one page. Sorry for the confusion, Adam. What I put on index cards after Safari are individual pain points, especially, and like little tick marks, like how many times I found them across various watering holes. Obviously, you cannot fit this on an index card unless you have the world's creepiest, tiniest serial killer handwriting ever. So filling up a page is more like how it's supposed to be. So I want to tell you guys something funny before we watch the video.
Go ahead.
So Thomas, my husband, doesn't really pay like super close attention to any of the 30 by 500 stuff that I'm doing typically. We just kind of operate in different worlds when we're working, unless we're working on Freckle together. And this morning, as I walked into the office, having not even had any coffee yet, he said, "So our hot water smells like sulfur," and I'm just staring at him, and I was like, I know this. I literally just Safari'd this a couple days ago. And I was like, yeah, anodes, right? Hydrogen peroxide, right? Yeah.
And he's like, why do you know this?
Like, why do you know that? Yeah.
Yeah. The universe works in mysterious ways.
We don't use the hot water at our office very often.
Right. So I'm just reading through some of the other comments that are coming through here. Does it matter whether or not they're good recommendations? I have no idea how to tell. Right now, you don't have to qualify whether the information is good. And remember that this is just one thread. When you're doing this in your own audience, you're going to be doing this on lots of threads. And that's really, really important. So one thread is almost never going to be enough to make a conclusive decision about something, but it definitely is enough to create something valuable.
As an e-bomb.
As an e-bomb. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a couple of minutes. Once you see how we go about Safari, and by we, I mean Amy, is going to show you a demo of what it looked like as she was going through this thread and analyzing. Is there anything you want to talk about before we get into that video, Amy?
Rob asks, would you get more than one e-bomb out of this thread? If this was my audience, yes.
Oh, yeah.
And I have something to show you after the video that you'll find entertaining as well.
Yeah. How many is lots is a good but also tough question. I always compare that to like how many sit-ups do you have to do before you have abs. It's something I said a little bit before, which is doing Safari when you start feels weirdest because you're not sure what you're looking for. Lots is relative. You might do 10 threads and suddenly notice there's a pattern. You might do 20 threads, and that's when you start to notice that there's a pattern. The key is when patterns start showing up. That's how many. And the reality is once you find that pattern, that's not when you stop safaring. You continue safaring. But when patterns start to be noticed is really going to depend on you, how much you practice, your audience, the threads. Even, different watering holes have different quality conversations happening.
Absolutely.
And all of those variables are going to come into play.
Yeah, we can't give you a clear answer on that, and I know that's irritating, but each case is different, and each person is different, each audience is different.
Right.
So Zach asks, is a thread, as in one, we say one thread, page 1 of that website, or all 20-some pages? All 20-some pages.
Right. Or, and remember, you don't have to go all the way into every thread. Better that you do.
Right.
But as you saw, you can get through page 1 and mine an incredible amount of useful information.
Right.
And that is useful to those people that you can jump into that thread. Now, here's the thing to remember is if a thread is 20 pages deep and you jump in to share something helpful on page 21, but somebody else had already shared it earlier, you're going to look kind of like a jackass. So this is another component of doing this isn't just sitting and lurking in these threads when you're doing this sort of intensive style Safari. These are places where you should be hanging out and professionally lurking, think about how much time you spend for the Hacker News crowd that's here. How much time do you spend lurking on Hacker News that's pointless? The answer is all of it, right? But you could make a lot of it valuable simply by being there with a little more purpose. So whatever places you hang out online have the potentially watering holes where you can get that information, right? And if you're not someone who actively hangs out online in these forums, something to start practicing, and you can use Safari as the training wheels to get used to doing that. So it doesn't feel like you're just sitting there aimlessly reading through threads.
So when I say, is it one thread? The answer is just yes.
Yes.
I mean, you don't have to read all of it for this Safari exercise or anything like that. Clearly, no one could possibly do that. I couldn't do that.
Right.
Hang out with a purpose. I like that.
Hang out with a purpose. Hashtag hang out with a purpose. Okay. We're going to show you a video. This is, once again, we're going to leave the screen, put a URL up on the screen. You're going to click play on that video yourself. That's right. You have to go click again in another tab, click play on a video. And that video is about 12 minutes long.
He edited it down a little.
Of Amy having done the 15 minutes, but again, we wanted to be useful with your time, so cut out the ums and uhs, the pauses and things like that. But you're going to get a chance to see, it'll be like watching over Amy's shoulder. Not only does she take notes, but also narrates what's going through her head.
Right, which is hard to do, by the way, so forgive me my mistakes. But it is a 15-minute Safari. I timed myself, so I had only the exact same amount of time as you did. And also, after you watch this video, we're going to announce a break once you come back. So if you've been waiting to figure out when you can use the bathroom or get a coffee, that is coming up. So hang tight. All right, Safari time. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is set up my Safari notes file, because there's nothing sadder than taking a bunch of great notes and forgetting where you read them, or failing to save, because that would be even more tragic. So I've already created and saved this file with the name of where I'm safaring and the date, and I am going to add the URL. And now I'm going to set up my 3 categories of Safari data: pain, jargon, and recommendations. Now I am ready to start. So the very first thing I'm going to look for is pain. Now remember, pain doesn't necessarily scream, "This is awful." Pain can simply be a terrible situation or the thing that led somebody to come post in the first place. So obviously we're looking at smelly hot water. Came back from a 2-week trip. Hot water smells. Cold water is fine. Smells metallic. Smells stale, dead, moldy. Pretty gross. Not sure what's causing it. Old water heater on its way out. Is the water safe? Got a baby at home. So that's it for the first post, which is pretty simple, just a few sentences, honestly speaking. Let's see what other people have described in terms of pain. And remember, it doesn't have to be the OP's pain. It can be any pain related to this situation. So chemical buildup in the tank, sulfide buildup. A quick remedy would be to replace the aluminum anode. I have no idea what that would be, but person says if you're going to replace the water heater, just replace it. Don't spend more money. Never use hot water for cooking. Never use the smelly hot water for cooking. Sounds like I'll be calling a plumber. Recommendation: calling a plumber. Can't go too long without baking. No, not baking the infant. Bathing the infant. Woo! It's hard to talk and type. Kenmore Power Miser. Should I get the 9 or 12-year warranty? So we've got some words here I don't know, so I'm going to add them in here. Anode. Magnesium anode. Aluminum anode. What are they? I don't know. That's why they're jargon. This person says, I don't know how old the water heater is, but you're going to replace it. There are a few more items your plumber should also look at. So, replace hot, cold flex supply lines. Replace the shutoff valve to the cold side. This is great information if you need plumbing help. Inspect the gas shutoff valve and line. Install safety straps if earthquake. Country. Heater must be off the floor in garage. Temperature and pressure relief valve has to have 3/4 inch copper pipe to outside. So jargon: hot and cold flex supply lines, shut off valve, vent. Ooh, I missed that one. Inspect vent. Safety straps, copper pipe. Probably has a word for that. I don't know what that is. This guy is so grateful for the help because this is some really useful and specific answers. It says the hot water heater is from 1996. I feel like that's a pain. It's got some heavy looking wear on it. That is an old water heater. Home inspector said it was close to its end. It's not really pain. Person asks, do you have a well? It's like a recommendation / pain. I think it's a recommendation. Implied. Well, could be issue. Many hot water heaters that set for a long period without use start to get a rotten egg smell. Contrary to common sense, water filters make this odor worse. Water heaters sitting, rotten egg, sulfur smell. Water filters make sulfur odor worse. It says the hydrogen ions are attacking the anode, making hydrogen sulfide gas. This is some deep water heater stuff. All right, hydrogen ions jargon. I know what it is, but if people talk about this a lot with water heaters, that's something that I want to have written down. Hydrogen sulfide gas. Not all jargon shows up again in the future, but it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. An easy fix I discovered when a renter was serving in the military: add about a quart of common bleach to the hot water tank. It will dissolve all the nasty bits. If sulfur smell from magnesium ions. Don't I sound like I know what I'm talking about? It's great. Add a quart of bleach to the water tank. Flush the tank. Repeat if desired. And done. Here's some great links. It's always a good idea to save the links that people recommend, because if people are sharing those e-bombs, and that is what they are, or products, you want to have them and see what your readers, your audience, is reading or recommending or buying. Note that all sites recommend replacing the anodes. If your tank is of sufficient age and you can afford it, replace the tank. It's cool. Replace the tank. That would be a recommendation. The smell in your hot water likely comes from bacteria in the tank. Third theory. Likely comes from bacteria. And I'm going to put down theory number 3. Drain the tank. Drains water from the tank through cold water input port. That would be jargon. Close the system. Run water from each tap and outlet, washer, etc. Outlet, because I'm not going to remember what outlet means, because it could mean a lot of things. I'm going to make a note that it means, a place where the water is used, like a washing machine. Peroxide. Oh, I missed a step. Add hydrogen peroxide. Should kill the bacteria. Keep water temp above 150. Will prevent bacterial growth. Careful if you have kids or elderly, because they'll scorch themselves. I like this guy. He's like, dude, your water heater is from 1996. I don't need to know anything else. Get rid of it. So that would be the second replace the tank recommendation. So here's the original poster again saying, I had no idea that you could flush, clean, maintain a water heater. That, my friends, is pain. A thing that will cause you to lose money or fail because you don't know about it. Definitely pain. That's part of the beauty of this forum. I'm always learning. Oh, e-bombs. I just spent some time reading up on water heaters. Very interesting. This guy needs to get out more. It's pretty much shot. I got to replace it. Going to order a new heater. Want your suggestions, feedback on the Kenmore 40-gallon. Didn't know a thing about water heaters. Needs support. Advice on new water heater. It's a case of a pain that's not explicitly stated. I don't know X, but requesting advice means you feel unsure or you need support. It's a major purchase. Let's see if the next page will load. Okay. So in response to the questions about the 40-gallon water tank, this guy says the 6-year and 12-year warranty packages are the same tank, but you're paying extra for an extended warranty. Should I get the 9, 6, or 12-year warranty tank? Fact, 6-year, 12-year tanks are the same. You're just paying extra for an extended warranty. If tank dies before time, you'll just pay for the labor to have it replaced. If it's a Sears tank, you also have to pay a service charge for an inspection before they'll replace it. That sounds kind of lame. Cleaning the water heater tank will prolong the life of the heater, but the heater can't be flushed for the first time after 16 years. Yeah, that's some truth bomb right there. Drain's probably plugged. We'll plug the drain due to sediments, minerals, and rust, etc. Hey, InBeach got the 12-year Power Miser. Who names these things Power Miser? Images of Tiny Tim and Scrooge in a water tank. It'll be installed Tuesday. Hooray! Foul smell's gone. Place tank. Foul smell gone. Old galvanized pipes were blocked. New pipes. Ooh, significantly better water pressure. I've had a few developments since I last posted. He's giving the plumber a euphemism that's always a good sign. I've been working with Carl over a year now. He's always great. A week after our water heater was installed, I hear a knocking sound. All right. Our heater is installed inside our house, almost directly outside our guest bathroom, in a small metal shed. 4 to 6 inches of clearance on all sides. The roof is higher. It's exciting. It is 4 to 6 inch clearance on all sides. Okay. Tube comes out of the heater. Is not connected to the vent. Large gap. Is that okay? Water stains 1 week after installation. Should that be? Dents in the heater. I guess heater installed in the shed is thing. Suffice to say, I knew virtually nothing about water heaters before I safaried this thread, aside from the fact that I miss tankless water heaters and I want one. But now I know all kinds of things, which wasn't really the purpose of the exercise. But if I had to sit down and write an e-bomb about cleaning your water heater, I maybe couldn't write it completely from scratch because, again, I've never done this. But I definitely have enough terms and things to look for and a broad idea of how it works that I could find more. And the fact that many people had a lot to say on InBeach's problems indicates that this is not a new thing that has only happened to him. Somebody asks, Power Miser is regarded as jargon. You're right. I should have written that as jargon rather than making a joke about it.
That's true.
Well spotted.
That's true.
Somebody asked, sorry, scrolled back. Great. So you're handing us these Safari threads, but how do I find them? And
Right.
the answer is they're everywhere.
Right.
Anywhere people gather and talk. We have a Safari watering hole cheat sheet.
That's right.
That you will be able to use to find threads. But the idea is that you have to find like these super powerful, high test, full of great data threads. That's not the way that it works. You don't need to find amazing threads to start getting data. It usually isn't as juicy as I showed you, but we had to pick a juicy one to show you the techniques.
There's one tip, and we'll have a cheat sheet for finding watering holes and threads that's going to come in the follow-up material. But one of the easiest cheats is looking for threads where people are asking questions. If the original poster is asking questions like this one was, that's a pretty good clue that there be pain.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
No.
But yeah, the reality is almost every thread is going to have some, even if the discussion isn't somebody asking a question or explicitly saying this hurts, that doesn't mean you shouldn't go inside and see what's there. That's the mindset for you to be getting into, is every thread has the potential to be this good. There's no way for you to know until you go inside. Once again, this is tough. Come on, Amy. Once again, this is one of those things where you got to fight your instinct to want to, optimize around every turn. You're going to be taking time to do this, but compare that to time spent doing stuff that doesn't give you any result, that doesn't work, that
playing World of Warcraft or whatever procrastinators do these days.
Lurking on Hacker News.
Oh God.
Yeah, like literally anything that you're doing that is taking time but not generating a result. You could be putting that time towards finding new threads. So,
there's a couple of questions in here that people asked. I thought I would like to answer.
Yeah,
briefly.
let's go for it.
Someone asked, okay, well, what kind of products would you make from this type of pain? And the answer is, I wouldn't make anything from this pain because this is not my audience. I don't know how to serve them. And of course, I don't do retail or anything. But if someone was in this audience, if they produced water heaters, or they were a heater dealer, or there was some sort of
Repair person,
repair
maintenance person.
or if they were an inventor who was going to make a different type of water heater,
Yep.
this is really valuable information. If you were a chemist or had access to chemists, you could make something that would clean the water heater. There's all kinds of things that you could go from this data to eliminate this problem or to make it easier to fix.
Yeah, Ryan's comment there, stay in your lane. That's
Yes.
exactly right. That's the reality is you have tons of advantages by being in your lane. Use the knowledge that you've got. To go somewhere else basically is you throwing away every advantage you have to start from scratch. And
we talk about this in the article that I emailed you guys last Monday, how to create a product people want to buy. We address audience questions there. It's really simple.
Right.
Serve audiences that you're already set up to serve.
right. Was there another question you wanted to talk about?
Somebody asked how long the break was. It's going to be 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Yeah, 10 minutes. So enough time to make a coffee, catch a bio break, that sort of thing.
What if you're not fully in a lane? Pick one.
Yeah.
Again, I covered this quite a lot on the blog.
Yeah, I think choosing who your audience is and choosing threads is probably the easiest place for you to overthink. We see that a lot with our
All the
students.
time.
And if you feel like you're struggling, it's because you're overthinking. Better to pick something than to not pick it at all.
Is my mic pointed away? No, I just sort of slid back
Yeah.
over time. So Brian points out you could also assemble a water heater repair guide. That is a very obvious product choice, and I don't know why that didn't come out of my mouth. Thank you for adding that, Brian,
Yeah.
because apparently I need to drink this
Right.
coffee.
So we're going to talk a little bit about stuff that you can create with this data, and then we're going to go on that break. Sound good? All right, let's do that. I'm going to flip back to our slides. Boop, 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 boop.
So a bunch of you were asking if we could, or several of you have asked and then voted up, would we please do an example with the technical audience? Because it doesn't feel like people are talking about pain. I did say we're going to make a bonus video that everyone will get, whether you get the early registration deadline or not, showing how to do it on a technical audience. But the thing is, this thread that we just did wasn't very painful. It was very, here's my issue, matter of factly, or asking a question. There's no real indication of pain. The guy didn't even sound upset. That is a lot of the way that technical people talk. They ask questions rather than stating pains, although in person on IRC, Twitter, GitHub issues, people do tend to scream about things. But just because someone's not being emotional doesn't mean that they're not experiencing pain. I think you've seen now how to figure out the pain that's sort of between the lines. And when it seems even less obvious than the water heater situation, ask yourself, why are they posting this? It takes effort and time to go on the internet to explain a problem or ask a question. That usually indicates that there's a reason that's good enough for them to be doing that. And there is usually where the pain will be.
Yeah, the way I like to think about it is if someone goes on the internet and asks a group of strangers for help or advice or backup or am I doing this right? All those kinds of questions, that implies an incredible amount of pain because the alternative is they could just sit there and whine about it.
Maybe not incredible, not like,
A
car accident or lost love.
A usefully significant amount of pain for our uses in what we're talking about here.
Because when you have that kind of behavior, it would be easy enough to persuade them to turn that behavior to something else, like buying a book or watching a long demo video on YouTube. I mean, you guys just spent 12 minutes watching me make notes on stinky water heaters. That doesn't seem like a natural thing to do, but you're here because you have a pain that you think it's going to solve. And you were like, yeah, that's really useful. From the outside, that's bizarre. But so is posting on the internet and asking a bunch of strangers something. They don't know you. They don't know your life. They don't really necessarily know what you're talking about, but it's an expression of hope. And as I said, hope is the smoke signal of pain. So after I safaried that, I was like, interesting, water heater stuff. And so I thought, well, what happens if I Google rotten egg smell or bad smelling hot water? And the answer is tons of e-bombs. So many. There were a whole bunch of ads. I meant to add the screenshot for the ads in here as well, and I didn't. So the fact that there was a bunch of ads up top of these search results, and then there's a ton of search results, says to me that people are making money off this. An ad for something doesn't necessarily mean people are making money, and even a ton of them doesn't necessarily, but it's an indicator
that somebody else has noticed the same thing that you have.
Which doesn't mean there's not room for you to get in there.
Yeah.
But you're thinking, well, what do you do with this information? Would the guide be free? Well, it depends. If you want to use the guide to sell something more expensive, like a service or a new water heater or some kind of subscription to a home improvement community. I mean, it really depends.
It also depends on if that audience already knows you and trusts you enough to pay for something. If you're a new entrant into that space and everyone else is already selling stuff, one great way for you to earn a bunch of credibility is to share really useful stuff that will say, wow, who's this new person? They really know their stuff. And now they're in your universe. So you can use small valuable things to build trust that help you later sell bigger valuable things. I think
strategically free.
Correct.
So I just wanted to show you this just to kind of loop it back. And also, again, this morning my husband said to me that our water smelled stinky, and I'm like, ha! I know this.
Right.
This is Unix. I know this.
Right. So any given pane that you find, whether it's sort of a top level pane that maybe incites an entire thread of discussion, or specific panes that you mine from within those discussions, have the potential to become an e-bomb. A really easy way to think about this is if somebody were to write you an email and ask you that question, or ask you a question about the pane that you've spotted, would you be able to reply to that email with something useful to them? Because if you can, my friends, you've got an e-bomb on your hands. That's all it is.
Absolutely. Oh, and the Unix, this is Unix, is a quote from Jurassic Park.
That's right.
Just so you know. Hello.
All right. We're back on air. How was everybody's break? Ours was very nice.
It was.
So we are heading into the final hour. Hopefully you've gotten a good break. You're feeling good about your Safari. You got some practice. Now you've gotten to see how we, the experts, and by that I mean Amy, the expert, but really how we approach it. And hopefully you've picked one or two things that you want to do better from the last time you did Safari. Right? That's going to be your goal every time you improve. It's not just to sit down and do some more Safari, but say, what could I get a little bit better at? That's ultimately the definition of practice. It's not just do the same thing over and over, but try to get a little bit better at it. So think about one thing that you saw us do and go, oh, I'm going to try to do that this time. Because what we're about to do is throw you into yet another watering hole.
Absolutely.
And I love this watering hole, by the way.
You do?
This is one of my favorite exercises that we do. It really, really is, and you're in for a real treat.
There was a strange synchronicity about how these things worked out.
It's true, and we'll leave it to you to figure out what that synchronicity is. But somebody had mentioned earlier about using Amazon reviews as watering holes, and it can be an incredible resource.
Funny you should ask.
Because so this next exercise is going to be an Amazon review thread. So if you've never actually dug into Amazon reviews, you might not realize that not only do you have reviews, but there's comments on some of those reviews.
Absolutely. And like a review may be useful, but when people get into a discussion or an argument under a review, it's extremely informative. Right,
exactly. And there's one last thing about Amazon reviews that I think put it as a watering hole, because it's kind of weird to call it a watering hole, but in a different context, you might look for books or products that already exist in your industry and start sorting on 3 and 4 star reviews and see what people are they say, when people say, I like this, but that's a clue, right? But the thing about Amazon reviews that is different from really any other watering hole is it's tied to purchasing intent. There's a product involved and a product with a price point on it, and it's directly connected to that review. There's no having to go hunt things out in terms of a commercial intent. So
it's explicit.
So I would say, as in anything else, you don't want to be relying on any one watering hole ever. But if you've never done an Amazon review Safari, you probably should.
Well, you're about to. So
You're about to.
because you're probably is just.
That's true.
It's just pointless to say probably. You're gonna.
You're gonna
You're
want to
gonna
do
laugh.
more. So yeah. So this one's gonna be fun.
But take it seriously.
So here we go. I'm going to pull up.
Rob asks, while you're doing that,
Yeah.
Have you done Safari on iOS or Android app stores? I mean, I always read the reviews for anything, whether or not I'm really going to buy it or not. I find it extremely interesting. So the answer is yes. And it shows you what a cesspool the app industry is and why we do not recommend that you try to make a mobile app as a paying product, because it is an extreme hit-based market where you have little to no control over anything.
Over
Don't
the
do it.
channel. Yeah. The whole goal here is for you to be using things like Safari to create e-bombs, to build the channel, and to own your distribution.
Yes, and sometimes when you Safari, you find out that the audience is horrible, pays for nothing, and does nothing but bitch and never fix anything. And that's a sign that you should run. And I just described both App Store reviews. So
yeah, that's true. So, all right. So to keep us on time, we're going to send you into one more review. I'm going to put the URL up on screen. We're also going to paste the link into the chat room as we have before. You're going to have 15 minutes. Once again, I'm going to set a timer. I'll come back around the halfway mark. I'll try not to scare you again. And once again, just like before, you're going to set up your Safari notebook, paste in the URL, today's date, pain, jargon, recommendations, and then go to town. You got it? Cool. All right. So, man, so many things to click. All right. So here it is a very difficult life. All right. So there's your URL. I'm going to paste it in the chat room as well. Hopefully it doesn't crash Bitly.
Joseph, you are
Joseph,
fast.
you are on the money. Awesome.
What the what?
What the what? So you should be seeing that this is a weird, but
huge and extremely valuable industry is what it is.
it is true. All right. So take a couple of minutes to figure out where you are. Get your giggles out. They're going to keep coming. You're going to have a good time here. I hope you're going to have a good time here. I think you're going to have a good time here. So
you just keep backing it off. You're like, you're going to have I hope.
All right. With that said, your 15 minutes are on the clock. We'll call you back in a little bit. Good luck, gang. right, I'm gonna try to not scare you this time. My soft radio announcer voice coming in to tell you that you are at about your halfway mark through this Amazon review. So make sure you've got some stuff in pain and jargon and recommendations, all three. You've got about 6.5 minutes left. And we'll see you on the other side. Now we're unmuted.
Hey.
All right. All right. That's your 15-minute timer. Come on back. Pull your head out of that thread. As fun as that was. How was that for everybody? Everybody have a good time reading through that fun little thread? Know way too much about poop. Funny.
My cat would totally
Hilarious.
burn down the house if he could.
Yeah, seriously. So how was that compared to your last safari? Obviously a different kind of thread, a different environment, but what did you notice this time that maybe you didn't notice last time?
Jung says, I did not expect people pay that much money for poop. And that exactly is why Safari is so important.
Indeed. Loads of great information. Loads. There's no way to not make poop jokes basically for the next 40 minutes or more. So better to view older or newer posts first? That's a great question. There's clearly some story unfolding in this case. So I would say starting with the oldest and reading newer makes sense. But
Yeah.
you could also try switching it up and see what you come up with. I don't think there's a right or a wrong way to dig into a thread like this. That's another poop joke.
Francis, oh God, didn't even notice that one. Francis said, people are so generous with their advice. You'll find that there's a lot of places on the internet where people are really helpful. And the thing is, they're getting something out of it. So that's an interesting insight into human nature. It's like, even if it's just feeling warm, fuzzy feelings,
Yep.
That is an important thing to notice.
Right.
Lots of indirect pains. Someone said that they remember more now that they typed it this time. Abik says, you two love giving us stinky case studies. We noticed that after the videos were done.
That was
wasn't
not on purpose.
purpose.
It was when I named the two videos, I was like, they have something in common.
So Timothy says he learned that cat people call cat litter crystals. So they don't. They call crystal litter crystals.
Right.
Other litters are called by other types. Clay litter. There's wheat or newspaper litter. There's a whole bunch of litters.
Whole different kinds.
That's why it's jargon. Don't think you know what it means. See, exactly. You don't know what it means. So write it down as jargon and then you can look it up.
Right. Exactly.
We should sell these people some corks. So this someone else write that E-bomb, how to get rid of your cat probably wouldn't fly.
So
we used this example in class in 3500, but some of you might recognize it, but people didn't actually Safari it. We used it as sort of, I don't even know what the word is.
We used it as a source for a later process, later steps in the process where you take Safari data and turn it into actual product concepts.
Yes.
We call it fixed storming. So we actually used this example as sort of the through line for that, which turned into some pretty funny examples, including ways to solve this problem that you would never want to do, including plugging up your cat's butt and getting rid of your cat.
It's always fun to spitball crazy solutions to get them out of your way and then go into the real solutions.
Right. So, okay, some people are mentioning the forever litter, the forever tray, these other things. That's actually one of the really important parts of this lesson, in the fact that we have a thread that you've now done Safari on about a product, and not just a product that people are. Did anybody notice how much this product is? The original product, the actual scoop free. Did anybody go back and look how much people pay for an automatic scoop? $129, right? So these are people that have now paid over $100 for a robotic poop scooper.
And what, like $15 to $30 a month on trays.
And they love it, but there's still a problem with it. And some enterprising person thought, I can make something, those forever trays are pennies. They cost pennies to make, and they're selling them for what, 20, 30 bucks a pop, right? So the thing we want you to take away from is when you're doing Safari and you find another product exists for your audience, don't assume that because a product exists that you can't create a product for them. Every product creates new pains, which means you have opportunities to create additional products. This is true of really any book or course or piece of software or template, really anything that is made for people in your industry. There is no such thing as a perfect solution. So there's two lessons in there. One is you don't have to worry about creating a perfect solution, right? Solve the problem enough to get them to the next stage. But also, just because a product exists, it doesn't mean there's not room for you. You can make another product even more valuable and get your piece of the pie as well.
Absolutely. People always say, oh, but my market is saturated. It's saturated with things that create more pain.
Right.
Don't let the existence of products deter you.
In fact, existence of products that people are paying for, are happy with, is a great clue that you've found a great audience that buys stuff and is happy with it. Those are awesome people to sell to.
Absolutely.
So we've got a video of Amy doing Safari on this one, so you can see exactly what we pulled out of this thread. And then after that video, we'll be turning over to Q&A.
Absolutely.
All right, cool. So I'm going to be pasting a link to the final demonstration video. Give me 1 second. And just like before, you can click that link. I'll put both the Wistia link as well as the Dropbox link in the chat. The chat right now, which is completely ridiculous. I'm loving it. You guys, we've sent you off on a trail of some kind. So there is the link to the video, as you might have been able to guess. I will post that URL as well as the URL to Dropbox. And again, this is about 10, 12 minutes. Watch it. When you're done watching, come on back in the chat room and let us know that you're done.
All right, and we're back with cat litter. Nobody has ever accused me of being too classy. So the very first thing I'm going to do is set up my Safari document, Feb 17, pain, jargon, worldview. So not 100% perfect, but nearly. I always record positive comments as well because they imply what the pain was or could be. Cleaning a cat box several times a day is a real pain. So rarely do people spell it out so perfectly for you. Hey, Safari person, it's a real pain. He just said so. Cleaning the rug because the cat was angry, the litter wasn't clean, is also a real pain. He refers here to his cat as His Highness, not technically an industry term of art, but it's revealing how the person talks about the creator of his pain, in this case, his cat. It says larger cats, multiple cats. Woo, can't type. Cartridge won't last 30 days, but I don't mind. Cartridges cost 15. That's the really bad part. He dumps it out once a week to make it last. Cartridge, definitely jargon. I won't say scoop. Maybe it's a little bit obvious, but I'm going to go with it anyway. I still have to see. I think he means he dumps out the poop. Urine for 30 days. Smell is gone. Does cat tracks litter everywhere. Solved by this litter box. Litter. Don't have to clean the box daily. It's not perfect. So, you know, if someone really loves something that it's solving a really bad pain for them when they say things like, I had to pull the poop off with toilet paper, but it's not a big deal. Big whoopee. Cartridges are expensive. Thinking about reusing cartridges. Waxed cardboard won't hold up. I wrote worldview. I made recommendations. Brain fart. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Waxed cardboard plus bottle of litter. Cartridge alternative? Question mark. After 1.5 months, I still love it. It lasts about 14 days with a once per week clean out of the poop trap. The crystals never smell like urine, but there is a smell after 14 days. Can't use litter liner. Can't use litter liner. Rake claws. Still working. Haven't found solution for cheaper refills. All right, now we are looking at the replies to this comment. There are 60 posts in a thread about a cat litter box, and more importantly, an Amazon review. When is the last time that you saw 60 replies to an Amazon review? This is noteworthy. So ordered it from Costco. Going to see what it's like compared to my Littermate boxes. Both died 6 months or less. That's pain. Anyways, I'm going to try to reuse the cardboard boxes. I guess those are the actual original trays. Cover with Glad press seal. I'm putting question marks where someone's not saying, oh, this works, or you should definitely do it. I tried the press and seal. Rake balled it up. Boxes last longer if the cat's claws are trimmed. Also, there's someone on eBay selling a forever tray that is PVC and you never replace it. I just got mine today and it's great. Some people want to be able to throw the refill away and not deal with it. But if you don't mind dumping and refilling, the forever tray is the best. They're in stock now. Looks like a really great deal. Hesitant to try to scoop free box because the refills are expensive. Let's see how it works. Ooh, there's something called PermaScoop. That's 2 options. Now we start talking about the cat. If your cat is defecating that much, you need to invest in some good food and no table scraps. Second vote. And it won't smell as bad. Would it work for a small dog? I'm gonna guess no. Vote number 3 for your cat shouldn't be pooping that much. Try feeding your cat higher quality food with no fillers or less fillers, fewer fillers if we're going to be specific. I feed my cats Evo brand food and they poop once a day. Fortiflora helps with the stinky poop. Sidebar, as pet owner, can confirm. I had a Littermate. Instead of replacing the containers, which were costly each time I cleaned it, I put a small garbage bag in the container. Littermate. Instead of replacing container, put a small garbage bag in the container and just removed that when it was full. We just got the Smart Scoop and are having issues with it. Thinking of switching again. I feel like that is a very interesting pain point. People are like changing their litter boxes the way they change their clothes because this is such a huge pain. This guy's like, food is terrible. Different from Friskies or Purina. Evo is a good brand. Nova is a good brand. Fila Day, Natural Balance. If you think, so I would put good cat food is expensive. Real food is really expensive. I'm guessing the Latin implies that it's super special. I've had a scoop-free box for 1.5 years and have never used the crystal system. After much trial and error, I found the perfect liner, a non-stick cookie sheet. Non-stick cookie sheet is the perfect liner for the litter cartridge. 14-inch wide by 17 to 22 inches long. Never leaks, never sticks. I cut slots in the cardboard litter trap to make scooping easier. Also removed the cardboard strip to trap raked material. This guy is like, some cats just smell worse. It's just a fact. Nervous to spend the money. Now, this guy wants to get a hold of the person. He wants somebody else to get a hold of the person. That doesn't even make sense. What would that do? But that's an interesting pain because people's anxieties manifest in that way. Does anyone's litter box rake lift up at the end to put the litter in the compartment on the hood? Mine just pushes it and never gets in the compartment. Rake just pushes poop, never gets it into compartment. Broken? Question mark. You will void your warranty. So that is both a pain as well as a recommendation. Recommendation is more like advice, as in do this or don't do this. Forever Tray will also void warranty. Ooh. It's another vote for the Forever Tray or equivalent. I've changed to a high quality, no cornmeal, no grains, high protein, dry cat food. 35% protein minimum. I feed some wet food too, and each cat only poops once a day. Wow. Okay. High quality, no cornmeal, no grains, high protein, dry cat food, 35% protein minimum. I feed some wet food too, and each cat poops only once a day. That's a lot of work to put in. Another vote, Blue Wilderness. Where did I put Evo? Blue Wilderness. So, mods, modification, Forever Tray, Tray, Crystal Litter, replacement, refill. I believe that is all the jargon for this guy, and that wraps up our 15 minutes.
Okie dokie. I think everybody has finished watching the video demonstration by now, and some good comments in the chat room.
Yes, there are. A couple of you pointed out that I missed some jargon, and you are absolutely right. I really did. And watching it, I was like, oh God, I missed a bunch of words jargon-wise. Not perfect. Me, I did it late at night, which I probably shouldn't have done. But I felt fine at the time.
Right. Also, like, you don't have to get it all. Like, I think something that folks come into learning Safari, and really a lot of the stuff that we teach, is thinking that they have to get it perfect for it to be worth anything.
Yeah.
And the thing I always say is, like, look, with stuff like Safari, you can get it 10% right, also known as 90% wrong, and still be better.
Thanks for doing that math for us.
Still be better off than not doing it at all.
Absolutely.
So this is not territory for perfectionism, which I know is a challenge for a lot of folks, but this is a great way to sort of beat that out of yourselves and realize that getting some jargon is better than getting no jargon. And again, always be improving.
Someone asked if it's better to put aside your personal experiences when you're safaring an audience. And the answer is definitely, and that is itself difficult and takes practice. Look at them as if you're studying an alien culture. That is really the way to go, because you think you're going to have all these assumptions about how people are, and a lot of them are going to be wrong.
I think a lot of folks want to pretend that they can go in and somehow be unbiased. And I just don't think that's truly possible.
No.
But I think what's important is knowing what your biases are, right? So knowing that if you see people behaving a certain way, does that verify something you already believe? If so, just note that verifies something you already believe versus pretending that it's categorically true. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. What else you seen in there, Amy?
So during the break, you were saying that looks like some people are thinking that Safari is a way to come up with product ideas.
Which it is, but not in such a direct sense.
No, it's It's the way to come up with product ideas the way that flour is a way to come up with a cake.
Well said.
Thank you. I want cake.
This is you finding. I guess we're getting cake tonight. This is you finding the raw material to figure out what to do next.
Yeah, it's a really bad habit, but also a really common habit and a really fun habit when you see something to go, oh, I'm going to imagine the product for that. But the problem is those of us who have that habit, and I did, we come up with all these product ideas all the time and we never make any of them, or if we do make them, we have no idea how to finish them and know they're good enough. And if we do finish them and then try to sell them, we'll realize that we have no way to sell them, or even if we try to market them, people may not buy. And the answer to that problem is to go through a process of understanding an audience, attracting an audience, persuading an audience, helping an audience, and then finally selling them something. And if you try to skip those steps, you are jumping right to the end that you think is the fun part, but it won't pay off.
Right.
You have to go through the other steps. There's a very specific process that we teach to come up with product ideas called fix storming. And if you think Safari is pretty analytical and step-by-step with a lot of components, fix storming is 10 times mechanical. We show you how to go through all the possibilities to weight the amount of data as well as the like e-bombs that people respond to and whatnot to help come up with the actual product. You should definitely not try to skip directly to product ideas from Safari, because you're going to find 3 or 4 threads and then make something and then find out you wasted your time.
I think the best way to think about this is to start asking yourself the question, what don't I have yet? Or what don't I know yet? And Safari is one of the most powerful tools you can use to figure that out. So if your answer to that is, well, I don't have a product to sell yet, well, you have to back up a couple of steps and say, you don't even know what product would sell, right? You don't know what they already want to buy. So you can use Safari data to answer that. You might realize, oh, I know that they would buy it, but I don't have any way to reach them. Like, let's say I make it, but how do I let them know that it's even time to buy it? Well, you haven't taken the time to build trust, earn trust using e-bombs, which once again come from Safari. So Safari is this sort of root tool for figuring out how to get what you don't have.
It's true. We all tend to, when we start off, especially when we're like, we have jobs or we're consultants or whatever, and we want to create our own products. We're like, okay, great. I have an idea now. I'm going to create a product. We don't even consider what don't I have.
Right.
Or if we do, it's just crazy fears. Like what I don't have is total confidence that everyone will love it.
Right.
But that's not something you can ever actually have.
Well, you can't have total confidence. However, as some folks are mentioning in the chat room, that e-bombing process, right? So we want to go from, I have, Safari data to I want to ship products. Well, that's great, but you've got to build the audience's confidence that you're someone who can actually help them. You've got to earn the sale before they're there to buy. And
Totally.
you do that with e-bombs. So there's a much tighter feedback loop of confidence where you can ship little blog posts, little templates, little kits, stuff that's free and helpful to your audience, or even low cost and helpful to your audience, to get them comfortable with you being someone who understands who they are, understands what their problems are, and can actually deliver a fix. Think about how many exposures you need to something before you buy it, compared to a business that you've already bought things from, and the last thing you bought was awesome. The next thing that comes out, you don't even have to question whether or not it's going to be good. So you can use Safari data to jumpstart that cycle, which gives you the confidence that you can help your audience, but it also gives your audience the confidence that you're someone worth paying attention to and buying from.
Yep.
So
well put.
That
again, I outline the 100,000-foot view of this entire process on my latest post on unicornfree.com.
Yep. Good question. A good example of an e-bomb from the Safari we just did. Gosh, there could be so many.
You could write all about, what does your cat smelly poop mean? Which organic food is best? Do probiotics really work? What's the one thing you're not doing for your cat?
Is the Forever Tray worth it?
Intestinal health, is the Forever Tray worth it?
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff.
Yeah, there's really, you could go through line by line of the Safari notes that you took or the Safari notes that we took, and I would say 75% of the notes that are in there could be translated into an e-bomb. E-bombs don't need to be epic. And in a lot of cases, a small, straight to the point EBOM is exactly what the person is looking for. The question isn't how big it is or even how big the pain is. It's, does it fix a problem that people already know they have?
Philip asks, how would you get the people you've targeted to see your EBOM and sign up for the list? We have 3 hours, people.
Right, right.
Literally everything you're asking is in the class, and I'm not trying to hard sell you on the class. There are also blog posts and things, podcast episodes we've done.
Yep.
But we really do cover this entire process in the 3500 class.
The short answer, though, is that simply to some degree, by publishing it is your first start, right? So you create something that is helpful and you put it on the internet. The next person that comes along with the exact same question is going to find it on the internet, because that's how Google works. They're going to go and type in the same thing. Depending on what the watering hole is, you also have the ability to go back into the watering hole where the question was originally asked and say, hey, here's a little bit of advice that I found, or hey, I compiled a bunch of the advice that other people wrote into something that I think is useful. Here's a link to it, right? So you use all of the context, all of the places that you're using to extract this information to reshare it as well. That's what we were talking about earlier when Amy said close the loop.
Yes.
Right. Somebody else said, you can use this when somebody else ask the question again. So for example, somebody will write me an email with a question, or I'll find a question out there on the internet. I'll answer it once. I'll turn it into an EBOM. And then the next time I see that question, I can post, hey, here's an EBOM that I wrote a while ago, or here's a post that I wrote a while ago. You look like a wizard because you wrote it long before they asked the question. But the truth is most questions are not unique to that one person.
No matter how they feel.
So it starts with not just getting to know who your audience is, but actively helping them. If you show up and help people, the answers to all of your questions, how do people find my EBOMs? How do they sign up for my list? That starts happening.
Thank you, Tim, for saying what I was thinking. I put on my robe and wizard hat.
Right.
Oh, old school internet there. Let's attack some of the questions that are actually in the question vote up thingy poo.
Yes. I'm going to actually, because we had a ton of really good ones in part 1. So we're going to start over there. If you've got new questions, please put them over in part 1, which I'll link to in the chat room as well. But we're going to start with the questions over there. So give me just 1 second.
So Philip also said that this feels incomplete. Of course it feels incomplete when you when you go through elementary school and you learn to do addition, and then you learn to do multiplication, and then you learn to divide. You can't actually calculate the area of a circle or a parabola or the speed of a falling object or an intersection of a graph, chart of lines on a chart. Everything is incomplete in life. You're learning a really valuable skill, though. Safari is the most core skill to everything else. It's where everything starts.
That's right. So the very first question we've talked about a little bit, which is focusing on non-technical posts.
On
technical posts. And how do you extract the pain from forums where people really just ask short and to the point, how do I do X questions?
Can you pull those questions up on the screen?
Yeah, 1 second.
So I think that we've covered that some already. The thing is, you have to learn to ferret out the implied pain. When people behave in a certain way, there's a reason, and you can figure that reason out. If you find that lots of people are asking the same types of questions about a technology or a programming language or a book or a tutorial or whatever, that implies that whatever it is doesn't work for them. And if a lot of people are doing it, it means it doesn't work for a lot of people. So, for example, my husband Thomas created a cheat sheet, a workflow, basically just a flow chart of how to retinify graphics back when Retina screens came out, and it got downloaded over 100,000 times. I think he said like many hundreds of thousands. I don't remember the number. It was a ridiculous amount. And I was like, Thomas, you dumb. Why isn't this a book people can buy? And he was like, oh yeah, that would make sense. And I'm like, this is why you should clear your business decisions with me. Brilliant developer. Like so many people I know, not good at business. That's my department. So he was able to turn that into $50-something thousand of book sales by turning it into a little paid book that covered all the steps in detail. So people weren't going, oh my God, I need a book or a flow chart for how to retinify things. They were asking questions about how to retinify it. Or he also observed that many people were not retinifying their graphics and inferred that there was an issue there. And so he created a flow chart.
So I want to add one more thing to the question, because in the In the question that's over in part 1, Simon mentioned a very specific watering hole as your main watering hole, in this case, forums.asp.net. If you're finding that one of your primary watering holes is really just giving you what feels like, let's call it drive-by question and answer, then it might not be a good watering hole to be your primary watering hole. That doesn't mean it's not valuable. On one hand, as Amy just said, you can still find ways to be helpful, but you can also use what you find there to go find other better quality watering holes. And what would be a better quality watering hole is a place where people are actually having conversations. And that might not seem like it's going to be the case for your technical audience, but in this particular case, forums.asp.net is probably like the most technical end of the spectrum. You might need to start looking for examples of people using ASP.NET tools and looking for questions about implementation, about configuration. You got to get maybe a little bit further away from the core technology programming language in that particular case. All of that being said, we're going to be following up with this, like I said, with an example of, and maybe we should do the ASP.NET forum and
Sure.
show folks how we would extract something from there. So we'll go ahead and do that, and everyone will get that video in our follow-up material.
And Phil, don't worry, I'm not taking it in the wrong way. I'm just trying to explain.
Yep, understood.
So another top question is, I'd like to know how to organize the data. I always struggle with that when I'm doing research. I create different topics, but the amount of data becomes overwhelming sometimes. So I am going to work up a little diagram of how I turn many Sales Safari documents into index cards, and then do a thing called card sorting that I learned from Interaction Design, but that works really fabulously for pulling out trends from your Paine and Safari data. I could teach an entire class just on that. So I'm going to try to condense that into 1 or 2 page sort of flow charty thing, and hopefully that will help.
Right. Moving along, someone, Aisha asks, I feel as though my market is so tight-lipped about their problems. It's been difficult to find those watering holes where they're openly expressing their pains. Been cold calling a few months with some success, but I'm eager to become more efficient with this process.
So I think now you know that people don't have to openly express their pains for you to figure out what their pains are. 2, if you're actually cold calling people, 1, congrats. I used to have to do cold calling and I hated it, but it takes a lot of guts to do that. When you have them on the phone, ask them what they read and where they chat with people. If you actually are going to cold call them, I mean, might as well take advantage of that, and then learn to read between the lines there. Philip says, I'm glad that you can do this as a worker. I'm an introvert. I'm a very extroverted introvert, but definitely introvert. I did this because of my experience with cold calling. I got used to it and it no longer scared me, but I found that I really didn't get a lot of value out of it. And so hence Sales Safari. People are more real often on their watering holes.
The other thing is that sometimes the watering holes themselves might not look like the watering holes that you hang out in. Amy's suggestion to ask them where they hang out is a really good one, but think outside the box. One of the places that, for the example that I always think of, especially for professional audiences, is it's not my default go-to to go check out LinkedIn groups.
No, I hate
However,
LinkedIn.
I hate LinkedIn and I hate LinkedIn groups. However, I know that in multiple audiences that I work with, there's incredible forums, incredible discussions that happen seemingly behind closed doors. They would not show up in Google searches. So I have to go into LinkedIn groups, try and find a bunch, follow them, browse around. I mean, I'm talking about just a couple of hours of research to find 1, maybe 2 really good ones, and go from there.
So off topic, but an insanely heavy thunderstorm just hit us. So it's possible that we will lose connectivity or power. So just in case, I wanted to let you know what's happening. If that happens, we will address a lot of these questions in a video that we'll send as a follow-up. Do I have sunglasses on? Yes, we do. It's kind of our thing.
That's more of a fashion accessory.
It beats a hairband.
Yeah. So the one last thought on, if you are genuinely, so there's two answers to the my audience is tight-lipped. One is you haven't found where they have conversations yet. In other cases, they might just be tight-lipped. And in that case, you're going to have a really hard time selling to them to begin with. So you may want to adjust the audience that you're trying to reach, because if you can't reach them to do Sales Safari, how are you going to reach them to sell them a product?
It's very difficult.
And how are you going to benefit from them sharing recommendations from each other as well. It's you're stacking the deck against yourself. So if that genuinely becomes the problem, then you may need to evaluate the audience that you're trying to sell to. I see some folks having issues with the connection. So looks like a restart will take care of that. We're going to keep going through these questions. Next one is, how can Sales Safari help me find product ideas when I have software skills, but don't know who I should be servicing with them? Do I have to know the target market to start Safari?
I think that by now you know the answer to that. Pick an audience that you already have a connection to. We always call it a three-prong. You've got people like you, people who want to be like you, and people who want to hire people like you. So you have your peers, you have people who wish to be your peers who are further behind you, who need to learn the skills and basics that you have, and also people who would normally hire you to do that custom work or whatever. If you can deliver that as a product, you can then save them the difficulty of hiring someone or cost or whatever. We'll help them do it themselves in one way or another.
Yep.
Cool. Same question, tight-lipped?
I think questions are moving around because they're being voted.
Oh.
Do you have a method to find a watering hole for every profession? Well, address that as question number one. Like we just said, most professions, we have been pleasantly surprised. Maybe not surprised is not the right word. We get people writing in all the time saying, I can't find my audience online, right? And within 15 minutes of research, we can almost always find their audience online.
Yeah, we're including a bunch of search terms and ideas in the cheat sheets for you guys.
So there's going to be this cheat sheet tool that's going to give you some suggestions, how to search, what to look for, and you're going to be able to use that to your advantage. The truth is most audiences, even ones that you believe don't gather online, have a place they gather online. An example that I was chatting with an alumni recently who works in aviation, and he was like, you know, my clients are mostly rich people that hire private pilots. I don't, and I was like,
strange life.
I was like, there probably isn't a forum where rich people talk about being rich people. Although maybe there is. But what are other things that rich people do? What are the other things that rich people buy? You can look at furniture, art, fine wine,
yachts.
Travel, yachts. So like, think about who the audience is in a broader spectrum and use those clues. And lo and behold, he found 4 awesome watering holes, was able to get involved in them, and was off to the races.
I want to tell you a really brief, funny story about the opposite of doing that. So when I was in Vienna, I knew this guy casually who ran the comic book store because I like to buy board games from him, and he was a jerk. But I knew his actual friends, and we were talking about him one time because, again, he was a jerk. And she said that when he wanted to increase business to his comic book and game store, he printed out a bunch of flyers and dropped them around the 19th district of Vienna, which is the rich people's district. It's extremely expensive there. There's embassies and whatnot. And I was like, why would he drop his flyers around the 19th district? And she said, because that's where the rich people are. But do rich people buy comic books? Probably not his intended audience, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So he did the opposite of what we're describing.
Right.
He thought, well, that's where the money is. Therefore, I'm going to hopefully sell them my stuff. That is backwards and doesn't work very well.
Right. Because you got to know what those rich people's buying habits are. And you can use Safari to figure that out.
Absolutely.
The second part of this question that I want to touch on is professions and audiences that you are not a part of yourself. So we actively advise against you trying to do Safari on audiences that you are not a part of. Now, it's not that you can't. It's that it's a whole lot harder. And I'm going to presume that just about everybody here in this class is a relative beginner at this. Why try and sprint before you even learn how to crawl or walk? If you are, you've got to learn how to do this on audiences that you're a part of and follow it all the way through so that you actually know that it works, you know how to do it. And then maybe later, if you want to start figuring out how to get fancy, like with years of experience, decades of experience, we can drop into just about any audience and figure out enough. Would we try and sell stuff to them? Probably not, because we have enough audiences that we are a part of that we can sell stuff to. And that's where all of our advantages are. And that's where, again, savvy business people work with every advantage they've got.
Absolutely. Why would you throw away an advantage?
Indeed.
I think people do it because they're bored, which is a really bad reason to make business decisions.
I agree.
it's easier to find a way to not be bored.
So here's how I would think about it. If you're thinking of it that you really want to sell to an audience you don't belong to, start by selling to an audience you do belong to. Make enough money to the point where there's no stakes anymore, and then you can get fancy down the road selling to whoever it is that you want. And if it doesn't work, you've got nothing to lose at that point. But you've got to build the opportunity for yourself to have nothing to lose.
Cool. So next question in terms of ratings is, I'm wondering how to select good watering holes. I mean, we've got the cheat sheets with all the search terms you'll need. A good watering hole is where people discuss things on a regular basis. It's not just asking a question
right.
and then getting some answers and then there's no interaction. Although those questions can be useful, they're not enough to form a big picture because you need more of an ongoing interaction between people to see what kind of behaviors they have as a group, like buying things.
To that end, I'm seeing people mention things like Quora and Stack Overflow, which, to be honest with you, aren't great watering holes. And here's why. They're an environment where people just ask questions, kind of like the Q&A at the end of this class. These questions aren't really good Safari data. They're interesting insights, but this is different from if you were to go onto a business forum, into an email discussion list, and post a question that you had, right? When you didn't know that we were looking for it. So Q&A sites aren't great for figuring out where to drop e-bombs, but they are good places to participate because they can help build your reputation. And they're also great places to look for keywords that you can then go plug into Google with the watering hole keywords that we'll give you in the cheat sheet and try and surface other things where actual conversations are happening. You want there to be dialogue. If they're in Q&A sites like Stack Overflow and Quora, actively designed to shut down conversation, which is the opposite of what you want. You really want places where dialogue is happening. Email lists are great. Forums are great. Again, there's endless.
There's it's like a gradient, right? Those Q&A sites are good for something, but they're not good as your main or only Safari source.
Right.
I don't have to imagine development without Stack Overflow. It's not as old as I've been developing. It was fine. People talked to one another in the old days.
The next question of how to figure out your audience. This one, again, people make it way, way harder than it needs to be. You've got three options. I have 5 fingers. Three options. Your professional community. So step number 1 is you're choosing professional audiences. You can sell to non-professional audiences at your own peril, right? It is way harder to figure out how they consistently buy, but people buy on value who are professionals.
I want to say it's not non-professional, it's consumer. So you have professional audiences or people who want to be professional. So if you know people want to create a career as a developer, for example, that's considered a professional audience, even though they're not a professional yet. Whereas people who buy things for their weaving hobby, maybe, or who are teachers, who are professionals but broke all the time, and not business people, they don't. It doesn't have the value mindset that you need to easily sell people. It can be done, but it's a hard row to hoe.
It's worth defining that value mindset that you just said so quickly for folks that aren't familiar with it. The value mindset are people who actively look for things that will either save them time and therefore money, or make them a multiple of the money that they put into money or effort they put into that thing.
Or they pay to have their pains go away.
Right. So there are non-professional audiences that think that way, in the same way that there are professional audiences that don't think that way.
Pet owners clearly, not all of them, but many of them clearly spend a ton of money.
Right.
Horse trainers and horse people are like a multi-billion-dollar industry just in the US. It's like you have to pick an audience that actively pays for value.
And they don't have to all pay for value.
Right, just enough.
Right. So for instance, we hear all the time, developers have all these open source tools and they're free and they don't buy stuff. Well, there's plenty of people that don't, but there's plenty of people who do.
Yes. Have you ever heard of Atlassian?
Right.
Microsoft? What about GitHub? All these companies that make millions and millions and millions of dollars off people who allegedly don't pay for anything.
Yep. So then a professional audience that you actively belong to, and then your 3 options within that are people who do the same kind of work that you do, people who want to do the work that you do, but they're just getting started, and people who want to hire you, but can't necessarily afford you or don't have access to you. Those are your 3 categories. brainstorm inside of those, and move forward from there. Anything else beyond that is fancier than you need to get, period.
Absolutely. So Rox says, or rather asks, I know exactly who my customer is, but they're sitting and operating in big enterprise silos. So I have a hard time figuring out how to access any discussions they participate in and where they hang out online. Yes. The answer to this question, which wasn't a question, you didn't actually put a question mark in there. It was more of a cry of angst.
Which we hear.
Cri de coeur. Is it depends on the industry.
Yep.
They probably do have some sort of professional groups. We mentioned earlier, LinkedIn or Facebook or people forums attached to industry conferences. You're going to have to find out, search for things that they use and talk about. For example, specific products, services, terms of art that they might use. Like, I don't know, if you wanted to hunt CEOs in the wild, maybe you should Google Six Sigma. I don't know, something like that.
And I mean, you can use Amazon reviews. What books do they read? And go see what kind of
what crap is 1-800 CEO read shilling this month, and then where are people talking about it?
Yep. Follow the breadcrumb trails. Those big enterprise silos are way tougher to get into. The reality is the deck is stacked way harder than if you're trying to sell to an individual or an individual who represents a business.
The 30x100 process is designed to help you create a self-serve business for self-serve sales. Enterprise sales is a whole nother ballgame. It usually requires lots of time and effort and timeline to sell to these people, which to my mind is not an ideal business.
However, the folks who use 30x100 style research, communication, basically use all the same tools in an enterprise environment.
To sell.
Still works. They're just, it's slower. And it's harder.
Yeah, and you have to do it on an individual basis more so than writing some really great blog posts, set up an email sequence, and then making sales. You have to talk to people.
This is a great example of, there's a difference between making a pain go away and easing a pain. In the case of enterprise sales, stuff may help you shorten a sales cycle. It may help you close an extra deal, but you still have a cultural process to go through, and that is enterprise procurement.
Yeah.
Unless they're people who have a corporate credit card, right? In which case, figure out where do they hang out when they're not wearing their, enterprise silo hat. They probably hang out in other places as well.
Most of our freckle sales into large enterprise come from an underling who fucking hates the time tracking tools they're forced to use and sells it up to their boss.
Yep.
We could probably do a lot more if we were to talk on the phone with people, but I steadfastly refuse. I don't want to talk on the phone with people.
Yep.
Not my thing.
Yep.
Will there be a supercut of all Amy's hilarious facial expressions?
Depends on how much time I have next week.
Todd.
Yeah.
There could be a really hilarious supercut of all the things I write when I typo, like baking the infant.
Next question. After doing Sales Safari, should I talk to my audience to validate my data?
No.
No.
You don't validate anything.
Right. So what you should do is help your audience. When you help your audience and you hear from them, hey, that was helpful, that's all the validation that you really need. But don't seek validation, seek to help. I think that's like, if you take away nothing from this entire 3-hour workshop, is to get out of your mind that you need to just figure out the right key in the lock fit, and instead figure out where is somebody who needs help that you have the ability to help, and then just go do that.
The idea of validation is wrong, because you don't need to validate something if you start from the data. The data actually leads you in the correct direction already. You know that it's a real thing. You may need to adjust which thing you pick to focus on, but that's a different story. Validation happens, and it came about when people wanted to just have great ideas and then test them and use AdWords, which is actually not an air quote thing, to spend money just to see if people would bite. That is the worst way to fish. You go where the fish are and you feed the fish what they want to eat. You don't think, well, maybe these fish might like hot dogs. It's I don't fish. That metaphor got away from me.
Yeah.
It was, what's his
that
face?
Metaphor came off the hook?
Oh God.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna throw that one back. What's his face? Dale Carnegie said that when you go out fishing, you don't bait the hook with strawberries and cream because that's what you like. It's not what the fish wants. So if you were trying to find fishes that ate strawberries and cream, you would be trying to validate your idea. Instead, you could just look at their biology and see what they actually eat.
Yep.
I'm not going to use any more fishing metaphors.
Okay.
I don't fish. I don't even eat fish.
Next question. What metrics can we use to decide if fixing a certain pain point for a community is going to be economically profitable? I guess some factors involved are how many people can we reach that are willing to pay for it? How much are they willing to pay? Is there a way to get reliable estimations for metrics like these?
Sorry, I zoned out there for a second. Someone was making fish jokes. Sorry. Give me a second to read that.
Okay. So
you forgot the most important metric of all, which is what is it going to cost you?
Right.
So if you can sell something for $5 that took you 30 seconds to make, that scales pretty well, and that would be profitable. So what you really need to do is to look at a factor of what it costs you to do, what the risk is,
Yep.
and what the reward is. So if you need to earn $200,000 a year gross before taxes to have a fantastic lifestyle, you really just need to figure out how can you get to that point. You don't need to say, well, the profit margin on this is 68% versus
Right.
profit margin on that is 63%. You want to look at the intersection of what they need and want and are ready to buy and what you are able to make and that you will enjoy making, that you'll make quickly and that won't take you 3 years to develop and all those other things.
Right. Yeah, I think that is precisely the answer that I was working out in my head, and you got there before I did, which is to a degree, the question is backwards. It's not what will be economically profitable. It's what gets you to where you want to be, and where you want to be is in your control. I think that's the key to the answer is you get to decide. So for instance, if your goal is to leave your job, that's your so that you have all of your income being replaced, maybe your first step should be selling a product that replaces one of your bills consistently. Pick a bill that gets the same amount every month. I tell people, like, your cell phone bill, right? It's probably less than $200 a month. Every single person that attended this today has the ability to create something that generates $200 a month on a relative autopilot if you continue working at Safari, eBaums, and shipping.
And the key here is it won't take you 6 months to do that if you follow the steps. If you want to spend 6 months, you figure out something that'll make you $200 semi-monthly, and then you can work on something that makes you $500 or $1,000 semi-monthly. You work your way up.
Right.
That is how we built our businesses. That's how I built my business. So the question of is it worth it or reliable estimations or metrics, it's not really the right question for doing what you want to do, probably. Also, this is not really on topic, but I see people discussing unicorn free. Here's the thing. Unicorn isn't about designers and developers, and unicorn isn't about billion-dollar startups. I use the word unicorn before it meant either of those things. Fucking jargon gets away from you sometimes. I meant it about magical thinking. As in, I went to the Schatzkammer, the treasury in Vienna, and there was a narwhal horn there displayed as a very important imperial treasure from 400, I don't know, 1500 or something. Yeah. Anyway, they said they thought it was a unicorn horn, and of course that's completely false. The thing is, a unicorn is not nearly as weird or crazy or fantastical a creature as narwhals, which are real. So that was my sort of battle cry for bootstrapping and creating products that actually, make you money and create a good income and give you freedom, is that it's actually better than the fantasy of, hitting it out of the park with a giant startup. So the other thing I want to talk about with worth it metric stuff, like, for example, if we wanted to make millions and millions of dollars off this 30 by 500 stuff, we could do it if we were willing to live a life and build a business that we don't like.
Right.
For example, the people we know in our industry who are probably closest to us have teams of 40 plus people and are fucking insane.
Yeah.
I don't want to have a staff of 40 people. I would kill myself inadvertently, I think.
Right. Not on purpose.
No, I wouldn't go and shoot myself. I would just downsize. No, I think I would die.
Yeah.
Is what I wanted to say.
Right.
So you have to consider, what is it worth it to you?
Right.
Again,
where what do you actually want out of this? And there's not one right answer for that.
Nope.
You've got to figure that out for yourself.
Yep. Cool.
Is
it a good idea to pick an audience of which you are a new member? should a relatively new React developer pick React developers as an audience? You can do that. In some ways it can work because you're a newbie, and so you can help other newbies like you more effectively sometimes than an expert can. But there's also arguments against it. I personally, that's how I became famous in the Rails world, is I started writing about eBOMs, about the struggles that I experienced and I saw other people experiencing with the Rails stuff when it was really, really early days. And that is how I had my first really big break, and seeing how the e-bombing process works really well back in 2006.
Yep. And I had the same experience multiple times where I talked about what I was learning, and as I was doing it,
we're going to lose power.
We're likely to lose power. So if we dip out, this has been awesome. We're going to keep going and answer as many questions as we can. But just to reiterate what Amy was saying, there is inherent value in sharing what you're learning as you're going.
It's just fresher.
Whether you're a newbie or intermediate or advanced, sharing what you're learning as you're going is always a good strategy. Who it resonates with is part of that decision as well. So you being a newbie could potentially resonate more with other newbies if you keep them in mind.
So Nathan asks, I think regarding the like 40 plus people business idea or like big startups, does that mean that our process won't work for those? No, it totally will, because it's not about our process. It's about, this is the way that people buy things,
right? Which
works at all scales.
Right.
The thing is, I would never want to have that kind of business because I don't like people that much.
Right. And the truth is these tools,
I don't like managing.
I think these tools uniquely work at both scales and give you the ability to decide how you want to move the dials on the equalizer, right? So if you wanted to build a team of 40 people, it would just change how and where you put your effort into it. So for us, it's growing a business that lets us work together and with people that we like in ways that make us happy.
Absolutely.
That's really it. That's really it. So let's keep going until the power goes out. How's that sound?
Super. Hey, we have dinner at 6, so we shouldn't go past that.
All right, so we'll do like another 10, 12 minutes or so. We already talked about if Stack Overflow is a good place to do Sales Safari, so we can skip that one. Once we know the pains and points of leverage, how do we figure out the best type of product to address those pains? So here's the quick answer that I'm able to give you today is you're looking for something that fits in the Venn diagram between things that they already know they want to buy. So that's the pain in formats, similar formats to what they already buy, right? So if you know they buy templates and tools, but they actively avoid videos, then don't make them videos. So that's half the Venn diagram. The other half of the Venn diagram is what do you have the ability to create with resources that you already have today? So if you don't know how to make videos, then that probably shouldn't be your first product.
Doesn't mean you can't end up there.
Doesn't mean you can't end up there. Doesn't mean you can't make that your second, third, fourth product, but choose stuff that gives you the upper hand. Stack the deck in your favor, punch above your own weight. I'm going to keep throwing out metaphors, but I think you get what I'm going at. Again,
stack the deck is confusingly close to stacking the bricks.
Remember that Venn diagram. What do they already want to buy? What are you best suited to create them? The overlap of those,
yeah. This has been diagram with your hand.
That's right. Yeah, but the overlap of those two things is the sweet spot. There's way more potential product concepts that you can create. Our fixed storming process in 30 by 500 helps you break outside of only the kinds of products that you've ever seen. I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges is people are exposed to, SaaS and ebooks. So they assume I have to create SaaS or an ebook when there's like thousands of other options. And Amy, your recent series,
I just did an article on that.
Multiple articles on that, in fact.
I could write about that forever.
And so take a look at those articles and try and get outside of just the kinds of products you've seen and think about what are the potential ways you can help people. Back to the same thing. What are the ways you can help people? That is how you answer these questions.
Effectively.
With the resources you already have, the least amount of time and energy from you to get them the result that they already want. Boom. Can we build a successful business around this without attaching a real name to it? Absolutely. Lots of people do. Now, there's advantages to attaching your real name to it. It is easier for many audiences to trust a person with a name or an identity, but you don't need that. Lots of people don't have it.
Most people buy products and they don't know who made them.
Yeah. There's no reason why it has to be It could be a made up persona. I'm thinking like Mr. Money Mustache.
Mr. Money Mustache.
Is
Yep.
probably like the go-to example of a made up persona that allows people to connect, but not have to put himself out there. But honestly, if you are going out with the intent to help people, people don't care who you are. They care if you're helping them. Hands down. That's it.
You need a name, but it doesn't have to be your name or a human name.
That's right.
It could be an alien name.
That's right. All right, let's do a couple more.
I want to take the just fucking ship question.
This one right here? Yeah.
Chris asks, any tips on imposing constraints to just fucking ship and avoid the pitfalls of perfection? Yes, I wrote a book called Just Fucking Ship. It has all the information on constraints that you need to just fucking ship. I mean, honestly, it's in the book, guys. We talk about that. The thing is, you're looking for some answer that will solve your problem forever, and that's not actually what it is. You have to take the simple principle and actually apply it. If you don't ship, you don't get any of the rewards of shipping. So you need to look at the principles, say, okay, I'm going to really apply this time and do it.
Yeah. I think the only thing you can really do is say, I'm going to do a specific thing by a specific time. We talk about that in the book, and then actually follow through. And here's the thing is, like, when you start doing it, you build momentum. So like maybe part of the reason you're getting stuck is because you're choosing low value things just for that quick hit. So try choosing a high value thing that you can do quickly and use that to jumpstart the momentum. Specifically,
Chris says it's easy to flounder about deciding on a domain name, web host, landing page, copy, payment processor, delivery mechanism, mailing list, software, funnel analysis, etc. I talk about this specifically in the book. You don't need all of that to ship. You don't. If you're like payment processor, just use what everyone else is using, which is in this case Gumroad these days, or DPD. I don't know. Just pick one.
Yeah.
Just pick one.
Yep.
Do you know how many times we've changed payment processors? Like 6 or 7.
Yep.
Just pick one. Pick one.
Yeah. Better to pick something than to pick nothing.
Totally. General recommendation for minimum number of Safari notes / threads to assemble an EBOM. You can typically assemble a lot of EBOMs from one thread, but it's usually good to see that type of thing repeated 2 or 3 times before you spend the time to create something, unless it only takes you a few minutes, in which case, why not do it now?
I'm going to give you a quick hack for starting to make EBOMs out of threads that you find. When you're in a thread, put yourself in the mindset of participating helpfully, like we've already talked about. Write an answer. A few sentences, a paragraph, a few paragraphs, whatever it needs in order to actually help the person. Hit submit, post it, and then copy paste what you submitted into a text editor and go clean it up for somebody who doesn't know about that whole thread. Add a little extra context, maybe add a little more detail, add a little backstory, whatever it needs to be self-contained. And now you've got your EBOM. That's an EBOM. And now you can go back to that thread where you already left a comment and say, hey, I spent a little more time thinking about this. I built on what I already shared here, but I wanted to make sure that y'all knew about it. It's really natural, non-spammy. You're just adding more value to the value you already added. People are like, wow, your first answer was great. You've got more? They're going to click that link, right? So if you can reply to a question on a forum or an email list, you can create an EBOM. That's all it is. You don't need to think about it more. Like, once you start doing that, you can start getting fancy and come up with other formats and concepts and templates and tools and all kinds of other things. But start there. Start really simple.
Francis says in the chat room, I've been interested in 30x100 for several years. Would you hold a Q&A for prospective students in a box with a fox, I think? Francis, we've held multiple Q&As. You can also just email us your question.
Yep.
Also, this is sort of like a Q&A for 30x500. I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of these questions are questions about the class. No, you don't need to apologize.
But yeah, if you have specific questions, you can email us
anytime.
Yep, absolutely. And if you do email us, we can probably send you links to old Q&As as well. I think we have at least 2 that are written, and we can share those with you as well.
Natalie adds, do you need to set up an email capture before posting your first EBOM? No. Generally speaking, you shouldn't set up barriers. I didn't collect emails for many years, which, I mean, I wouldn't do that now. I definitely wouldn't recommend it. But if that's going to hold you up, then just post your damn EBOM.
Right. Yeah. And I would also say, if you break it into small steps, right? So right now you're going from shipping e-bomb, or from not shipping e-bombs to shipping e-bombs, sharing e-bombs. Like, build that rhythm. Once people start seeing you, sometimes it's going to take people a couple of exposures to you before they sign up for that for your email list anyway. So don't let all of that mechanical stuff stop you from getting out there and helping people.
Baby
Again,
steps.
the takeaway we want you to have is get out there and use what you already have to help people. All of this stuff rides on the back of that. So the sooner you start that, the easier everything else we've talked about becomes. Great. Great.
Philip asks, did someone ask, where do you publish e-bombs while I was in the bathroom? Well, you shouldn't publish e-bombs while you're in the bathroom. I know there were quote marks in there, but I couldn't help myself. You publish them on your site. You answer forum questions or mailing list questions or whatever. You tweet them. You email them to your list when you have one. Those are basically the question answers. Some people use Medium to drive traffic back to their main site. That's good. Using Medium as your only publishing place is bad because you have no control over it, and they promote other people's content alongside yours, which is good when you're a nobody and you're getting promoted among other people's great content. But when you're not a nobody, so to speak, not a value judgment, people they're actually stealing your audience. So definitely use it only as an on-ramp.
And it's also, they don't really give you a way to stay in touch with
there's
your
no way
audience.
to stay in touch with people on Medium.
So having even a really simple blog that you actually control on your own domain is really important.
Don't overthink it.
Yeah, agreed.
Philip asks, you've already created, marketed a product. Do you continue to do safaris to refine the product or focus on customer feedback? Why does this feel like a text adventure game? It's because it's written in the second person. Go north. The answer is yes.
Yeah.
All of those things.
Yep.
Safari will help you figure out what features you should do, what your next project should be, what problems your customers have with your product, what issues customers have with your support.
When you have a product, you actually have two audiences to Safari simultaneously, and to be successful, you kind of need to do both, which is extra work, especially when you're just getting started at it. So you kind of got to pick one or the other to at least get started. You've got your how do I get new potential customers audience to Safari, but you also have your existing customers to Safari, and while there's some overlap in them, they may not be the same thing.
Right.
There's also an element to, are there better customers than the ones you already have? Right. So the example,
usually yes.
Yeah, usually. So, I'm thinking about the shift that you made from Freckle being targeted to freelancers to small teams and agencies. And that meant doing some Safari on small teams and agencies and adjusting language, adjusting e-bombs to start to reach them.
Point of fact, we only added the freelancer plan after we launched because so many people asked for it. And then I realized that people asking for things is often a bad sign directly. So yeah, we didn't have a freelancer plan. We were only agencies. That was my plan all along. And then they talked me into doing the freelancer plan, and then they had a disproportionate cost, turn rate, et cetera. And we decided against it again because I was right the first time.
Yep. Real quick question about the 30 by 500 lessons. So in 30 by 500 Academy, similar but not the same. Similar in the fact that you will have specific targeted time-boxed examples of audiences that are not your own for the most part to go and learn how to do the thing. The big difference is in 30 by 500, we also give you step-by-step, we call them challenges, action challenges, to take everything you just learned and point it to your audience. Yes. So there's way more detail and step-by-step in translating the stuff to your own audience, as well as, we were only able to cover this 3 hours is the equivalent of like 2-ish lessons out of 100 lessons.
Over 100
lessons. So, we've had a few folks actually time their process of going through the entire course, and it's over 40 hours of material if they're just going through and doing the material. But live versus self-directed, it's all self-directed,
except that we have the boot camp, which is totally live.
That's true.
It's one full day to get you through the 3 major skills so that you get a lot of experience.
But it is the core of the material is still on your own time. We get you jump started, but it is on your own time, on your own schedule. There's a chat room full of other people going through it as well. So if you want to have a little bit of teamwork, you can use that to your advantage too.
Thank you. I don't want to mispronounce your name. I'm just going to call you Q. Thank you, Q. Sounds really cool to be called Q. I'm going to say that.
More breadth, more depth. If you like the webinar, you'll love 30 by 100. Yes, thank you very, very much for that.
Does the full 30 by 500 still exist? Oh, yes. It's big.
Yeah.
It's large.
Yeah, absolutely. Chat room is Slack for 30 by 500 Academy as well. Yep.
It's huge.
Huge. Cool. I think we should call it at 5:30 and before the storm knocks out our power. So we'll say thank you. Thank you for spending 3.5 hours of your Saturday or potentially Sunday morning for some of you. This has been a super, super fun for us to do this.
Yeah,
for the
we've
first
never
time.
done anything quite like this before. So we're so excited you joined us, and we had a blast. I hope you guys had a good time. And just for the record, if you feel like I was saying something mean about one of your questions or whatever, I was just joking. My sense of humor has a learning curve. I'm sorry.
It's good. If you do have any follow-up questions, we'll scan through any of the questions we didn't answer. If there's anything especially high value, we'll do our best to answer it. After this workshop, and not today, but next week, we're going to compile all the videos. You'll get access to all the videos, this one, part one, the examples, all of that stuff, the templates, the cheat sheets, all the stuff we've talked about as well.
Yeah.
And then give us a little time. We'll finish up the bonus videos as well for those of you that signed up before the bonus video break point.
And if you're interested in 30 by 500, clearly we're not going to do a hard sell. I actually never do a hard sell. But if you have any questions, just email us. A couple people have asked about the chat transcript. We're going to do our best to save this. Not 100% sure if we can. We're going to see what we can do. If we can, we will.
Yeah.
The next 30 by 500 doors open on March 6th, but if you ask nicely, we're letting people in early.
Yeah, you can shoot us an email. You can reply to your emails about this event, or help@30by500.com if you've got questions about today, about 30 by 500, and things like that. The Crowdcast transcript will be saved as part of the Crowdcast event, but I don't think there's a way we can actually pull it out. If we can, we'll try.
Dave says he did it.
All right, we'll talk to Dave afterwards and see if there's a way to do this. Cool.
So please just direct your 30 by 500 questions to the emails you get from us. Just hit reply. We're happy to answer all of them. Believe me, we're happy to answer them.
Absolutely. Next 30 by 500 boot camp is April 15th. That is also a Saturday. It is an all-day event. Runs from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern time. You get instant access to the entire 30 by 500 Academy program as soon as you sign up. But then on boot camp day, we're going to dive deep into some very specific parts of it to make sure that you have the most complete understanding and readiness to get into the meatier parts of it.
And we will be emailing you all the goodies we promised you from the workshop.
Yep.
And we will be emailing you the dates on 30 by 500 and whatnot. You just hit reply and ask questions. We don't want to keep taking over 30 by 500 questions now. But thank you for having all these questions.
Yeah.
Michael Allen posted the email address in there, but you can also hit reply to any of the newsletter emails and it goes straight into our help inbox.
That's right. Whew. That was good.
Sweet. Yeah.
All right. With that, we're going to sign off. Y'all can hang out in the chat room for a little bit and say your hellos and goodbyes. But we're going to sign off and go get some dinner. So thanks again for spending the day with us.
Yeah, it was really awesome.
Thanks for doing great work. It was obvious that you guys were putting in the work.
Graham says you can do this with the JavaScript console to save the chat. Thank you, Graham. Great idea.
Just to complete the thought that I was saying, for all of you who spent the day not just sitting back and listening to us, but actually doing the exercises,
digging into poop and stinky water heaters,
we know that you got the most out of this. So thanks for showing up. Thanks for putting in the work. And as you put this stuff into action, whether you I don't care if you sign up for 30 by 500 or not, if you put this stuff,
it would be nice though.
If you put this stuff into action, and you ship an e-bomb, email us your first e-bomb. We love seeing that stuff. Email us your first e-bomb. Email us the first time somebody replies and says thank you. Like, let us know what you put into action. A, we'll cheer you on, and B, we'll make sure you know what the next step is. That's
yeah, we're happy to answer questions by email. Obviously, we can't teach you everything over email.
Exactly.
But if we were just in this for the money, we would run a very different type of business.
That's
what
right.
we're really in it is for the thrill of you guys succeeding
That's right.
and knowing that we helped you.
That's the ultimate high.
Which that made it sound weirdly pornographic, but we just put that. But
sound
sharing
that way
is
to me.
caring. Oh, well, no.
Yeah, millions of dollars.
Awesome. All right, I'm starving.
Yeah.
We'll
all right.
see you guys later.
Get some rest. Thank you.